you guys are selecting Merrick for your telehealth platform needs. They have a couple different ways that they go about doing this. The first is through a self-selected experience. So there's a table talk panel, which is the full panel. That would be the panel that I personally get twice a year. That's checking everything. You name it, it's all there. The other panel is a checkup panel with a guided optimization. You're connected with a patient care coordinator, and the patient care coordinator will meet with you to determine what your needs are. Thing to be able to help optimize your health or mitigate without judgment. So the discount code again is Table Talk Merrick Health for all your hormone optimization and performance needs. Today's episode is brought to you by Element, a tasty electrolyte drink mix with everything that you need and nothing that you don't. In other words, no sugar, no artificial coloring, no artificial ingredients, no gluten, no fillers, and no BS. With Element, I love the watermelon. The watermelon tastes freaking awesome. I drink 1 pack every day, no matter what. People that train out here, it's sitting out here for them all the time. The boxes don't last very long. Right now, Element is offering Table Talk listeners a free sample pack with any purchase. That's 8 single serving packages free with any Element order. Get yours at drinkelement.com/Table Talk. The deal is only available through the link in the description. The other thing is, if you don't like it, you can just give it away to a salty friend and Element will give you a 100% refund. No risk, money back guarantee. Head over to drinkelement.com/Table Talk. All right, guys, we've got a new limited edition drop, the original Mountain Dog tee that John Meadows had us design from the very beginning. So it's the first tee that he had made. Once again, this is a limited edition item, so when they're gone, they're gone. While I have your attention, you've seen me wear this one in a few podcasts to date. We've been holding back on it. This here, the 4-star tee, I think that's what we call it. It's on the website. New items, also under limited edition. Check out our shoulder saver pads. It's an easy way to do limited restricted range of motion exercises like board press that basically you just pop the pad on the bar, reduces the range of motion, pop it back off when you're done. Thank you guys for the support. Head over to elitefts.com. It's time to sit down, keep it real, and cut the bullshit. Welcome to Table Talk. All right, what's up, guys? We're back with another episode of Table Talk. Today, my guest is Jim Wendler. Couple announcements real quick as I was communicating with your wife.
Oh, yeah.
Jim will be doing, if we don't cover any of the questions that you guys are looking for, we don't talk about anything that you're looking for, he's going to be doing a live AMA on his YouTube channel Friday at 10. Is that right?
10 a.m. Eastern
10 a.m.
Yep, every Friday.
Every Friday. So head over there and check that out. She also gave me a discount code for you guys on all of Jim's ebooks, which is 30% off all ebooks at jimwendler.com. And that ends January 26th. So we got all your pimping out of the way.
That's my wife for you.
Quick. Yeah,
she's a good woman.
Yep. All right. So how was the season this year?
We were probably the best team we've ever had at London. And then we just took it right in the pooper in one of our playoff games. Now, granted, we fully lost that game, but the other team came to play.
What round?
It's just the second round, and we had beat that team by 30 points in the regular season. It just, the problem was we were undefeated, I think, and I think you need to lose. You need someone to come in and kick your ass once or twice. You know what I'm saying?
Well, how much difference will that, in the college, it's better to lose early?
It doesn't matter.
It won't matter?
No, that's because there's a point system. Yeah. So regardless of when you lose, your playoff ranking is based on, so if you're a really good team and I beat you, I get more points. If you're a really shitty team and I beat you, we only get a few points. And
But don't you know that until the end of the season?
That's what, well, you don't know it to the end, but so it doesn't really matter when you know, because we played a team this year in our opening game that everyone thought was supposed to be awesome. And I'm not exaggerating when might be the worst way to start a season. Not for us, for them. The worst way I've ever seen. We kicked off to them. They returned it, whatever, a couple yards or something. They throw a pass. We pick it off and run it in for a touchdown. So they've run one play, pick 6. We kick off again to them. They return it for, 10 yards. They run a run play. We knock it out. So now we have the ball on the 25-yard line going in. We run a quarterback sneak. Right, not power, not counter, quarterback sneak for 25 yards for a touchdown.
First play.
So less than 30 seconds have gone off. It's 14-0. And I remember I looked up because it was an away game. I went and I looked because their crowd was, it's the first game of the season and everyone's got all the high hopes. And everyone was just sitting there, just
deflated after 30 seconds.
It was brutal. It no matter what we did. So this year, it got to the point where I know there wasn't, we run, wing T offense, and eventually you're going to play a team with some athletes in some kind of scheme. I've seen teams not even have any defensive backs. They just put all linebackers and linemen, but there wasn't a single team that even came close to stopping us. I bet you we ran quarterback sneak. I know it sounds stupid. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Just gets under center. Yeah. That was a main play for us. And I don't know if we probably averaged 15 yards. Like every fucking time we ran, it was a first down. And it was just like, my dad's like, I've never seen anyone do it like you guys do it. And if you saw our linemen, they're not 6'3", 260. They're 5'11", 205. They look like skill guys who maybe just gained a few pounds because the coach wanted them.
Yeah.
So it looks good on the on the program at the beginning of the year. But, towards the end of the year, we got kids weighing, 190, 185 playing line. And, some of the kids I think we had a kid who was like around 240. But the bottom line is it was just, we didn't have any ringers. We had a few really good kids, really good, but we didn't have like that kid who was just like going to Ohio State on that was one of 30 schools he had.
Yeah.
We just had a lot of good seniors that were in the program for a long time and who played very well. And we even lost our top running back about halfway through the season. And I was like, and he was like kind of our bruiser. So we had a lot of speed guys, and then we lost our tank. And I was like, holy shit, this is going to hurt us. Fuck it.
Yeah. Is that why you think it was the best team you've had? Because you had so many seniors?
Yeah. Yes. Well, you had you don't want to say seniors because I think that gets a little. Your goal isn't to have just seniors; it's to have seniors that are players.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because then it just starts. Then you have a bunch of kids who can't really play, and they're sometimes a cancer. So we had not just seniors that could play and contribute, as seniors that were really good. And I think you get better as coaching. For me, like I had the best in-season training that I ever did in my life. And like even during the summer and stuff, things started like becoming more and more apparent. I don't know. It just gets weird. I've been doing this for so long, and every so often, like you kind of hit a peak. And you're like, wow. And then 12 months later, like, Jesus, I've learned so much, from you always think like there's not much else to learn. And this summer, I got to train some kids individually that had graduated and were playing in college. And like all kinds of like, it's hard to pinpoint exactly what I learned, but things just really opened up, and all of a sudden things don't matter that you thought mattered.
Mm-hmm.
Like we did with one of the guys I coached going on to college, and I was like, I called him up or texted him and said, listen, dude, I'll train you for free, but I want to try the old Nebraska metabolic training, which what Nebraska did in the 80s and 90s and stuff. And I'm like, would you be willing to be my guinea pig? And so, obviously we have to change shit around because I'm in my garage. You don't have all the coaches and the equipment and stuff. So I had to make some changes. So I'm all excited, but I'm a little nervous, right? Because this is a whole program. This is not my program. I'm trying to figure shit out. And after like the third day, I'm like, dude, it doesn't matter what program you're doing. If it's being coached by me, it's my program. Because I'm watching every single set and rep, and I'm like, it looks just like when he was doing what we were doing at the high school. And I'm like, we could do a West Side style, and it would magically look exactly like this. I mean, it would be, box squats or whatever. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, man, a lot of this shit doesn't really matter. Like, because he was doing lots of sets of 10. The whole goal of that metabolic training was to build muscle. And obviously when you're doing like West Side and stuff, whatever, the goal is to build strength. The point being is it ended up looking basically the same because every rep was on target. Every set looked the same as if he was doing a powerlifting workout because I'm coaching it and I'm programming it. And, the other thing is the one thing I got really good at was, obviously when you go in, you have like a plan. I was never a slave to the plan. If I go in there and just like the kids are exhausted, I'm like, well, this is what we're doing. Instead of like trying to force that square peg in the round hole, I was okay with giving it all up because it didn't matter. To the point where I think 2, maybe 3 weeks before the season ended, we always tried a trap bar on Monday. Now we didn't always trap bar on Monday because the kids were just tanked, but everyone hit giant PRs. Like fucking seniors have been there for 6 years.
Now you're speaking in season?
In season.
Yeah.
And it's like, so not every week the consistency doesn't happen on a 7-day thing. It happens on a massively broad scale. And sometimes you don't make that progress. It doesn't seem like you make that progress that week because maybe you didn't do your max effort work. Yeah.
Did all of them like sync up like women with their periods?
Yeah. Well, what happens is I'm sure you understand this. If the big time leaders are locked in and it seems like, again, like the period thing, if, this kid feels pretty good and then this kid, feeds off his energy and then it starts feeding up and going down, then magically everyone seems to do good. And I thought the same thing. I'm like, isn't this funny? Now, a lot of it has to do with everyone's practicing the same. Yeah. So if you don't have a very hard practice, magically you feel better the next day. You know what I'm saying? But the whole period thing cracked me up because I was like, man, this is so weird how infectious. And then you see like how infectious fucking bad people are because it only takes one. And it doesn't even have to be a leader. It could be some kid in the back who's just bringing everyone down with his shitty attitude. So
how do you control that?
I don't know. Well, the good thing is that generally speaking, those kids will leave. It's just not going to, they may... but he's not going to be there for a long time. And if he's a senior, he will be taken care of in-house by the other seniors that, or the coach will bring it up like, dude, you got to take care of business. Like he's got to be, I'm not saying he's getting like a towel party. Yeah. But that needs to be dealt with. He just won't be asked to come back.
How long has Juliet been working with the junior high? So I guess my question is, was that group of seniors, her group that's come through?
That group of seniors... I think that might have been the first full group. Okay.
So they're coming in at a higher standard.
They're coming at a higher level, way higher level. Where like I'll give you an example. When I coached Elijah, that's the kid that I did the metabolic shit with, I didn't have to coach form one bit. You know how nice that is? I'm not saying like...
No, I get it. Yeah.
Well, I'm, like, dude, listen, like your hip shifted a little bit there. Let's just make sure, we'll just whatever. But it wasn't like, listen, don't eat the barb, don't lick it. Yeah. Where now I can just worry about the nuance and the programming and stuff like that. And I was like so thankful that I actually changed weights. Like I was like, dude, you're willing to put forth the effort. Like I don't have to do this. I'll fucking help you out. I'm not saying I'm too good for that, but I was laughing about that. But that's the big thing is for the most part, I mean, you still have to coach technique at it. It doesn't matter if they're seniors or freshmen. But for the most part, like they know what the trap bar is. They know how to set up. You think this is...
Well, sometimes coaching the technique can be at the expense of the effort that they need to expend.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So if they're coming in with 60% good technique, then the effort can be higher.
Yes. Well, the one thing with Elijah was he's got the best technique I've ever seen in my life, and not just technique, but precision of movement and control of movement. So like when I do chin ups and you do chin ups, it's like when he does them, it's like his dips are, you know what I'm saying? Where everyone else is doing this.
Yeah.
So it was a joy because like you knew every rep was going to be solid. You knew every rep was going to be good. And you know, if he failed a set, it wasn't because he didn't rush it again. He's like, that's just not where I'm at. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's just so it was easy to modify the weights and stuff like that. And then even within the, you know, with the metabolic stuff, and you read all this, there's books on this and on the Nebraska training method. And like, you know, you go from point A to point B and add weight. And then I'm like, dude, you can't do that. Like some days, like he just can't do it. And I was like, don't worry about it, dude. Because it does, you know, all we're doing is looking for this long-term training effect to take place. So this idea that everything needs to be linear weekly, you know, for the rest of your life is such bullshit. And we just trying to do good work every day, you know. And but it was really awesome because even within the in-season training, towards the end, obviously as the season wears on, you do less and less heavy work. It's just kids are just tired, and everyone goes both ways, you know, all that crap. And as soon as I recognized, listen, we're not going to do this, we're not going to trap bar all today. We did just like box jumps instead, which is like the easiest thing in the world. And then the old me would have been like, oh shit, dude, we're going to get weaker. And then 2 weeks later, we trap bar and everyone's hitting 405 for 10, you know, whatever. You're like, holy shit. Like, we didn't get any weaker because we did the right thing. So it just, you know, it's funny because I remember after like the first successful off season, I'm like, well, I got it all figured out. And then it's like, man, I know nothing. So it's been fun though, man. And, you know, we had, I think, all but one game, we had a running clock, which means in Ohio, if you're up by 30 or more points in the second half, the clock just never stops. And so every single game but one, we had a running clock. And the one that didn't, we played like crap and still won 21-0. And the coaches were furious. The team was not that good. It was the kids were like, who cares, dude? We'll score 21 points in the first quarter. And like, we don't need to do much more. But anyway, it was an awesome season to be part of. It got to the point where like one of the funny things, I'm not going to name the school. It was an away game. I go into our locker room. I'm like the second person there. And one of the coaches got there early. He's like, Wendler, you got to see their weight room. And their weight room wasn't the biggest weight room, but I think they had like 9 full racks. And I'm looking around. I'm like, wow, this place looks nice. But I can't, it's like going, seeing the Stepford Wives. You're like, man, look at how ordered their house is and look how beautiful but you're like, man, there's something wrong here. And so I'm looking, I'm trying to figure out what's wrong because it looks really good and like everything, like all the 10s are where they need to be, all the 5s and the 2.5s. I'm like, I know what a clean up the weight room means when I tell the kids it doesn't look like this. So I'm like, they don't use this stuff. They clean, you know, they probably put it together one time and never used it. I'm like, this will be an easy game. Yeah, the other coach actually asked our coach to have a running clock in the first quarter. That's how bad it was. We scored whenever we wanted to. It was kickoff, return, punt, return, block, punt. You know, like, you want to throw a pass? Fuck it.
Yeah. What are the standards that Juliet's trying to get them to before they get to you?
That gets a little hairy because of maturity. But I think it's like 135 for 10 on the squat and trap bar. Maybe trap bar is a little higher. Then 95 for 10 on the bench. And then obviously be able to jump, which sounds stupid, but you know, to jump on 2 feet, land, do cartwheels, do forward rolls. Chin-ups is a huge thing. Like she just had the kids do 50 minutes. She calls it special forces. So after they lift, they do, I think James did this too, because James is training with Juliet, even though he's technically not supposed to, but you know, That's the one thing I ask, because he's not in 7th grade. But I think they did 10 squats, 5 push-ups, and 1 chin-up every minute on the minute for an hour. It's not bad for a bunch of 7th. Like, do you want to play that 7th grade team? I mean, it's crazy to think. There's young, and it doesn't.
How young is she getting them?
All the 8th graders are supposed to be there. It's some 7th graders, and you have to have passing grades. You can't. So that's one of the big things. So they have the coaches have like a grades check every like 3 or 4 weeks or something. If the kid's failing, like you can't so it's everyone's grades got better because everyone wants to lift. And I think James got to bring a friend, so he feels like he's not completely out of place. So there's just the 6th grade. This is the first time they've had, obviously, because of James, my youngest. He's in 6th grade, but he's been around lifting, and he had spent a year doing like normal training with me. So by the time he knew how to set up a squat rack and knew how to put the basics. So, but I still get James occasionally, if there's during the holidays or something, him and I still train together. And, but it's funny because it took a long time for him to get to do a pull-up. And then all of a sudden it was like an onslaught. So like we did like the jumping pull-ups where you stand on a box and jump up and hold, and, and then, so this was like a year and a half of just, oh God. And he doesn't know how to give effort. You know how that shit goes. And I do a lot of rope chins myself. And so the rope was hanging down. I'm like, just see if you can just hang. And so he gets up there and then just pulls himself up for 2 reps. And I was like, dude, your first chin-up's on a rope? But I mean, he could have done it on obviously a barbell. I just didn't realize it. So now that's kind of my big litmus test, so to speak, is as long as he can jump and do a pull-up, we know he's getting stronger in accordance to him getting more mature. Yeah. Because that stuff catches up to you when you get older.
Does he want to do this?
Yeah. It's he's not begging anyone, but he sees the difference, especially because, you catch him doing this and flexing in front of the mirror and stuff like that, which is hilarious. But he doesn't always like to do it, especially when it has to be with me, not because I'm mean, but because it's, 20 below in the weight room.
Yeah.
And it's, but he doesn't really complain much. And I don't really, I did a video on this. I don't push the weights on him. Like I don't push loading. And I always tell coaches, miraculously, your kid's technique gets better when the load is proper. For example, if, can you watch my set here? My knees are coming in or I'm whatever rounding. And I always say, well, did that happen with 135? He's like, no, it's perfect. I'm like, well, it seems like it's not a squat problem. It's a loading problem. Just lower the weight. Well, I can still do it. Like, well, no, you can't. Look. So why don't we just lower the weight, get better at it, be patient. And when we did that with James, for example, he could pick up a ton of weight, just like everyone can like a deadlift. But his back would round and it would drive me nuts. So we just teetered on that edge where it wouldn't. And we just repeated set after set for months. And then all of a sudden that's, I'm just making up a weight. I think it was on 65 pounds where he could always do sets of 5 without an issue. And then one day it just seemed like things were clicking and I did 95 for 10. Perfect. I'm like, all right, now we had a new, so you can't just add weight every day. Some days are going to be really easy and it's fine. And I look at this like a 6-year project, or for him, it's been forever. But, because, we have time. But if you're patient with the loading and stuff, it's going to work itself out in the end. But I think parents' ego and lifters' ego takes over. And I watch, people send me videos like, look at my kid, he's doing this. And you look like, dude, you couldn't even, you get booted out of the weight room looking like that. Like, like you don't get to do this anymore. And so I guess the message is just repeat the shit until it gets right. And it's okay if it's the same thing over and over again, because they need to learn the motor pattern and they just need to get stronger. He doesn't have any testosterone going through him right now. like we're used to do,
Yeah.
like, we do a set of rows and it's like, well, that's about it.
Yeah.
When you had high testosterone.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I don't know
oh,
when
yeah.
that was.
Oh
but-
yeah. Yeah. Well, you can fix that, right? But
Yeah. But the point being is, like, it was a big learning experience because, he doesn't really care that much. I mean, he cares, but I also learned that, like, no one's going to care more than you,
Yeah.
in the weight room. And I always tell coaches, I'm like, well, that's a good thing, because now you got a job. Because if everyone was just like us, you'd have no need for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's amazing just watching a kid get a little physically better, stronger, and what happens in every other area. And you know that as well as anyone. You just become a better person, so to speak.
How has it changed the high schoolers that you're working with now? Or how's your program changed from the onslaught from when you get them? Because now you're getting them at a better stage.
Yeah, I don't think it didn't change that much. What changed was I don't have to spend all my time with the young kids, where that'll sap your energy. And now I can, when I say it's squat day, they're not looking around, and they know, they already know how to put 95 or 10, what we call bar math, which sounds stupid, but listen, all of our sets are done on a timer. So I don't just hand you your paper and say, oh, I'll see you in about 45 minutes. I've set one, here we go. And you got to you got to have that set ready for the next time I say go. So there's less babysitting and more coaching.
What do you mean by on a timer?
Meaning when we do our main work, like let's say it's squat, I said, we got 6 minutes, get your warm-up sets in. We're going to, let's say we're doing 4 sets that day. We're going to do all of our sets together as a team. And so we're racked with 3 guys. Let's say my first set's 225, 245, and 265. So I go first, 225. I say go, first guy up. We got 3 reps, 225. Then you got to go, and you got to get the weights ready. And then the third guy's got to go. And then your next set is the, second set, whatever that weight is, you have to be able to, put it on and get ready for me to say go again. So we usually do on the main lifts a set. I have a running timer. I just use my watch, and just every 2 minutes we usually do a set, unless something's a little funky or something. I see the kids need a little more rest or something. So we get all of our sets done. Let's just say we're doing 5 sets. Our sets are done in 10 minutes. Instead of, if I hand you the papers, there's going to be a group of kids. It'll take them 45 minutes to get through this.
Is there anything they're doing in between those sets?
For the most part, no.
All right.
And the reason why is I thought about doing that, but one, they need spotters. They need help people changing the weights quickly. And when we do something, I like to just do one thing. Let's just do one thing and do it well, instead of trying to, especially with our main lifts, because I just want this to be good. Let's not worry about anything else. Now with assistance, we might do like a circuit or alternate, 2 exercises and stuff. But those sets won't be on a timer. It's like, listen, you got 12 minutes. You got to do at least 4 sets of both. And that's on your own. And then you can watch which kids, are willing to give more effort and stuff, and which ones are farting around a little bit. But for the most part, everyone's good. But if I didn't used to do everything on a timer, it would take forever. And it's always the weakest kids who take the most time. Like even today, when we have kids warm up, the kid's first set is 70 pounds. It'll take him the entire 6 minutes to warm up, where all you got to do is the bar for, 2 sets of 5 and you're good. And so it was just taking too much time. And it was, to me, that's very selfish, because I'm like, well, like, why is this kid who's, not playing right now taking all the time away from everyone else? We're just waiting on him. So that was Dave, that was of all the shit that I did as a coach, that was the hardest thing I ever did, was getting everyone on a timer. It took 9 months for it to work. And that's a lot of, it doesn't sound like much till you get 50 kids in the weight room.
Yeah.
Here we go. Which set? What?
And then you got to remember it.
Well, I remember, but it's just, it took some time. So usually what I do is I implement that stuff in the in season with the younger kids. And so I work out all the training bugs with them, because my in season groups are smaller. So I just start to slowly, so by the time we get to the off season, most of the JV kids and the younger kids are already going. And the varsity kids are very easy to coach because they're, by that time, those kids are well disciplined and stuff like that. And they understand. So, but then, for like in-season training, we get all our shit done in 35 minutes and it's solid. Like every set and rep, even we have what we call pre-practice, and that's when all the kids get in during the off season. They get all their abdominal work in, all their chin-ups, pull-ups, and upper back work. So when I walk up to the weight room, those kids have been there for 20 minutes doing, so you go in there, there's, 50 kids doing ab wheel, leg raises, sit-ups, rear raises, tons of pull-ups and stuff. It's awesome. You're like, holy shit. And this is on their own. So it's a really cool sight to see when you walk up. And but that's how we start our training. And it's funny because we were at the start of the mobility madness, where like mobility would take all this time and stuff. And so I had this was a couple of years ago. I'm like, why are we doing all this? The kids are fine. Like, it doesn't mean they don't do a few things, but I'm like, we could cut out 90% of this shit and I don't think it would matter. So we started just chopping things away that I was like, because I always look at it from my perspective. Like, you know what? My fucking back hurts. So I need to do hip work. Well, you know whose back doesn't hurt? Everyone else's.
Yeah.
So, how it's just, it's like, I always laugh about West Side barbell, triceps, posterior chain and all that stuff. Nothing wrong with that, except those were Louis' weak spots.
Mm-hmm.
Louis didn't like quad work because Louis had no quads, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, well, you don't need them. I'm like, well, you don't need them.
Yeah.
I remember one time at West Side, I was doing belt squats or something. And Louis was like, man, I wish my legs look like yours and were strong. I was like, Lou, they can. If you go over here, don't box squat it. Do some free squats with this. And he's like, you don't need to do that. I'm like, Lou, you just got done telling me. And like Louis tore his pecs a bunch of times. So he never really needed that shoulder work and the pec work. And I was like, well, Lou, that's because it hurts you to do that. But everyone else, they're okay with it.
Yeah.
And so that always made me laugh because I'm like, well, that's just, it didn't matter. Probably the greatest strength mind that we've ever known still fell prey to well, this works for me. This is how I see the world. Everyone else's world probably the same. It's like, that's not how it works, man. Mm-hmm. Like, even like, the early writings of Lou talked a lot about, you don't need a lot of shoulder work, pec work and all that stuff. And I'm like, Lou, everyone else that's there now already did all that for 12, 15 mm-hmm. years. Your guys are all doing bodybuilding. Of course you don't need that much. That's like saying Usain Bolt doesn't need to do a lot of sprints anymore. It's like, well no, because he's been sprinting forever.
Yeah. Well, he was. I mean, the guys that were coming in too already had many years of training before even being there.
Doing it the wrong way, so to speak. Mm-hmm. It's even like, I remember telling the story when George Halbert came in, he had a huge chest. It's like, we got him off doing all that stuff. Well, yeah, but now he's got a giant chest, is super strong. George was super strong and fast. And it's fine that he didn't do that anymore. And obviously he still probably did some here and there, but he can get away with it. But, a kid who weighs 185 pounds, who's got, little chicken cutlets and titties, he probably needs to do some push-ups and flies and dips and shit like that. So anyway, it's just, I caught myself doing that stuff. So we started cutting all of the, the mobility bullshit. Doesn't mean that it doesn't have its place, especially for older dudes and stuff like that. And maybe some kids need it, but generally speaking, we get all that stuff taken care of in just big full range calisthenic movements. It just works better. Mm-hmm. And I don't know.
How many movements are they doing during the season in a session? If they have a main movement, so three
total. So one main movement and two assistance movements. And we might throw in one other thing. Kids always at the end, then it's not counting neck.
Yeah.
And the kids will always do neck and they always do curls.
Yeah.
So, but that's on their own. But the one thing we did too, especially with our 9 a.m. class, we do our assistance work before we do our main work. And, cause the kids I don't care if you get up at 4 a.m., 9 a.m. workouts for it's fucking early.
Yeah, yeah.
And those kids are dragging ass. So I'm like, dude, so on days we trap bar, we do all our pressing in rows before we did our trap bar. So by the time they hit the trap bar, they're ready to go and ready to kick ass. So it's just little shit like that. And then the other groups didn't have to do that because it was later on in the day at 2 o'clock or 1:30 or whatever time it was. And they're already, been up and moving and stuff. So, but doing like the warm up, almost like what Matt Wenning did, I started doing that in my workouts about 10 years ago, just body weight movement stuff to get ready. Cause I'm like, when I do like a full range squat and I hang from the chin up bar and hold the bottom of a push up, I'm like, I feel really good. I'm like, why don't I just do this for the warm up? It doesn't have to be that hard.
Yeah.
And we started doing that with the kids too, with some body weight stuff, and the kids got better. So like, I'd rather have the kids do chin ups and push ups than, alternating heel touch with a, on a, I don't know, on a landmine. God, people are weird about the landmine. You don't need anything but a landmine, Dave. And you see these movements like, dude, it's much easier with the barbell.
That must be the new thing, right? So,
I don't know. I just saw a video and it's like, you don't need much else than a bar in a corner. I'm like, and they're showing them like do deadlifts. I'm like, how cumbersome.
And squats.
Just use that bar and then put the weights on both sides. So much
no
easier.
shit. Yeah, obviously you have the room.
I know.
And you have the equipment.
It's just really weird to me. It's just, I remember in like 2003, 2004, that's, I think, when the kettlebell craze came on, and it was like, that's all you need. I'm like, and I thought about this, not saying like the kettlebells have their place, man. Great for assistance. They're fun to do, especially if you just want to do them. Nothing wrong with it. But don't pass it off as the ultimate strength tool. Because I thought about this, like if you took two 88-pound kettlebells and cleaned it, like the wide stance, it's hard to do. But you can also, most kids can clean 225 if you give them some coaching. That's way more than. So I'm like, well, I don't know. It just seems like a lot of work to do less.
Yes. Yes. How's the training change in the off season then?
Well, we add an extra day, so we train 3 days a week. Where in the in season we train 2 main days, and then we have like a recovery yoga day. I do yoga with the kids, which it's like a guy in Congress running an ethics class. It's just, I occasionally I when I'm like, listen, we're going to try this, and then I'm like, get over here, get the most flexible guy over here, because I'm not doing this in front of anyone. And but the one thing we did differently this year is, I watch our kids during the season, they're making great progress. I'm like, why am I doing a little bit more than I should probably during the off season? So we treated a lot of the off season so far this year like the in season, meaning we're going to cut the workouts down so they're shorter. They'll do just less movements. But I'm just curious to see what will happen. Well, the kids are definitely hungrier because they're not as tired. We're out of there much quicker. So that's one thing I think we did a little better job of this year so far. So we'll see. The other thing, Dave, and this is like part of my re-education, is if you do the exercises right and are consistent and give effort, you'll be all right.
Yeah. Well, the contrast to that is if you do them wrong.
Yes.
So don't give a lot of effort.
Instead of like, should I do 3 reps or 8 reps? I'm watching Elijah do sets of 10 on the squat, and I'm like, you'll be fine doing this because every rep is done perfectly and explosively. So yes, it's less weight than he would do if he's doing a triple, but he's still doing the reps awesome. Control, explode, control. So why is that worse? I'm going to go off on a tangent. How is that? Yes, the load's lighter. I get that, but he's still lifting with the intent that I want him to lift with, and one thing I remember you saying this when you went bodybuilding style, is like you had to reteach yourself how to lift the weight. It used to be, even when you're doing a curl, it's like 10 screw. And you're like, dude, I can't maintain that for 10 reps at this weight.
No.
But I could just instead of giving 100%, like we've all been taught to do, right? Zatsiorski talking about dynamic effort and all that stuff. It's instead of lifting the 135 with 500 pounds of force, or whatever, 300 pounds of force, you're going to lift it with 185 pounds of force, so you save yourself. And that's one thing I always, even when I do higher reps today, like I have to slow my shit down, instead of, even when I'm doing like just weight vest stuff, I see myself control. And I'm like, why am I so tired? Well, dude, they're just doing this, so, I'd rather be the explosive guy than the slow guy though, any day of the week.
So how do you measure where they are? So the question would be, what metrics do you use to know if they're getting better? Some would say max out, but that's not going to be what you're going to say.
Yeah. So we have rep standards for each lift, and you have to pass. So on certain weeks, you have to be able to do at least X reps to move up. And and I always err on the side of much lighter in the beginning, obviously, because that will, some days you're just not going to have a bad day. And the other thing is we started repeating cycles. So instead of just doing 4 weeks and then upping the weight, we do 6 weeks, and you have to show complete competency at all those. Now there's like a rep range, but as long as you're hitting numbers that are acceptable for the lifts, and each lift is going to be a little bit different. Like we train the bench a little heavier, doing a set, you can always eke out like 5 on the squat or deadlift, right? Just because you have bigger muscles. On the bench, dude, once your triceps go out or shoulder, like it's just gone.
Yeah.
And so we can lift that a little bit heavier, I found out, as far as percent, the weight percentage to your max. So I just say, like, listen, if you can hit 10 reps on this week, we're good to go. Let's bring it up. And then maybe the next 6 weeks, you're only hitting 7 and 8. We're just going to repeat that until you can do it right. And it always works. That's the crazy thing.
Well, I think some people get confused about the ability to build strength and the ability to display strength.
I told the kids we're training.
Yes.
And when you train in here, you have the utmost integrity. Now, if we're doing a chin-up test, you swing a little bit, the chin, I don't know if it's quite over the bar. And that's how I tell the kids how to practice. You practice so it's the perfect technique. You're never holding it. During the game, you get away with some stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm like, when you train in here, you always have the highest integrity, and it's okay if you don't feel like you're always doing great, because you're still putting the good work in. And the minute you start lifting your butt off the bench or cutting your squats, then you're not getting any better. And don't worry about the weight, guys. And that's hard for the kids to understand, especially like the older kids who really, or some of the younger kids too, who like, I want to put 135 on. It's like, dude, you're not ready for it. And it's okay. Don't worry about it. Like no one here cares, because every one of those seniors got his ass kicked, with 155. That was just, he couldn't do anything more than that correctly. So, but that is, that's always, no matter what, whether you're bodybuilding coach, whatever you're doing, you're always going to fight that fight, trying to put more weight on the bar than you're ready for. But I've always said, the more conservative you are and the longer you're conservative are, the quicker you're going to get stronger, because you're training correctly. And I don't know if I'm making sense. Like,
no, it makes sense, because
just like when you're rehabbing, we always front load the rehab. Like, take more time, because it's going to pay off in the long run. It'll pay off sooner than you think. And
with more seasoned powerlifters, I think the opposite happens, where they spend too much time building strength, but not enough time learning how to display that 1 rep strength. And that's where things get convoluted, is they start to become better at that. Then they start thinking, well, I don't need this other stuff.
When I remember at the end, when I was at Westside, I was so dialed in to doing singles and doubles that anything more than that would gas me, almost, like to the point where, like, I can't do it. So like it's like, I remember I filmed a set and everyone's like, dude, you had 6 in you. I'm like, dude, that was, to me, that was all I had, man. And so it's funny because let's just say you can bench 500 and it looks, but you're 455, you're not doing 2 at 4,
Mm-hmm.
where it's just you just don't have the gas because you're just all accustomed to doing singles and doubles and stuff like that. And you see it with the Bulgarians. You watch the Bulgarians warm up. They didn't do anything more than 1 rep because Abadjay was like, you never should do 1 more. That's what we care about.
Mm-hmm.
So you get really good at that stuff. The problem that I had was I almost felt like I was almost testing too much sometimes because I didn't know I did know how to build it, but I don't know. Like I remember my eccentric strength got really bad because you're wearing the shirt and all that stuff. As soon as I took that off, like I just didn't have it anymore. And I was like, well, that's a huge, dude, I lost all this strength.
Yeah.
And, but I'm like, yeah, but at the same time, my total skyrocketed. So, I always find that strange when they're like, when I was powerlifting, I could do this, but I couldn't do that. I'm like, well, because that's not the job.
Exactly. Well, I mean, there is a place for things to be physically oriented in a program to where,
like my sets of 10 went down. Like, who gives a shit?
Yes. And then after you peak, you put those back in and build that capacity back.
Yep. And the other thing, man, I'll tell you what, Lou knocked it out of the park was the importance of assistance work to build the muscle and the strength, not just the barbell stuff, because my God, does that tank you?
Mm-hmm.
And the more that I see it now, it works for beginner lifters too, because there's less chance of them screwing up, for example, a dumbbell squat than there is a barbell squat. So we do a ton of more assistance than we've ever done and much less barbell work. But it's funny because it works for advanced guys and it works for beginners. And even with James, like he was horrible with the barbell squat to the point I took it out. I'm like, he's not getting anything out of this. And I'm like, well, he's just not strong enough to hold certain positions and it feels awkward. So we just dumbbell squatted him, did a shit ton of jumps. He still deadlifted really well for whatever reason. And, did the prowler and stuff like that. And after like 6 months, I took him back to it and it was perfect. I'm like, yeah, we're fine.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of wasting all this time trying to teach, like he's fine. He's got 6 years to learn this. I don't need to learn it now.
Well, you're going to see this with him, but you've already seen it before. How do you navigate when they do start going through puberty and the testosterone does start coming? Because their gains are going to be a little different.
Yeah.
Actually going to be a lot different.
I'm still, listen, man, I am the most conservative coach out there because I don't think again, we're not testing and we're training. And that's where, like, I worked with a kid who's now, he's helps out now, and he's 100% in the lifting. He's done a couple meets, but he was the kid that if you put 9,000 on the paper, he's like, well, I guess I'm doing 9,000. And he was built to lift. And I always purposely underlifted him. Like, I mean, way up. Like, if you've seen one of his sets, you're like, dude, seriously, Wendler? I'm like, I don't know. And every once in a while, I let him work up, and it was astronomical how much stronger he got, because every workout was like, we did a good workout today.
Mm-hmm.
Now, part of that might be because he is built to lift. He had one of those, bodies where like, fuck you. Like,
yeah.
Like everything is just, perfectly balanced. But it was an important lesson, man. He just put in good work all the time. The reps were solid. And especially with the main barbell lifts. Now with the assistants, we push the reps and stuff like that. And that's where it's, I used to be kind of, because I would see, this is again, some of these great lifters like Captain Kirk, they would just do the main lifts and leave. And I'm like, well, shit. I mean, this guy did it, this guy did it, this guy did it. I'm like, yeah, but they also have 15 years, 20 years of doing the main lift and then doing a million curls and dumbbell bench and whatever the hell else. And so I got away from that because I didn't need to do much of that either. Like we used to at Westside, do a couple, squat and do some ab work and we leave.
Well, again, that's after all the years of the other stuff.
But I didn't apply that same logic, and again, that's just, how you're younger, you think you know everything. And if the strong guys do it, than I should be doing. It's like, no, look at what the strong guys did before. And we've said that, but it's easier said than done.
But that's amplified now in powerlifting because social media, the guys are only showing
Yeah, they're good
their top
sets.
sets
Yeah, I
of
know.
that main exercise.
Yep.
They're not showing any of the assistance work they are doing.
Yep.
And so the kids are like, well, they don't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't understand what they
Or
do.
when they do it, it's, you know, nosebleeds and some kind of circus lift kind of bullshit, where in reality, you're going to do a lot of lat pull downs that just kind of lat pull down,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and so like, here's another thing that I thought was funny was when we do a lot of our bench training, not testing, if we don't do a lot of reps per set, we just basically give them 6 minutes or whatever I determine it to be, and you do nothing more than a 1, 2, or 3 reps, and you do as many sets as possible. It's almost like speed work without being speed work, because if they do any more than that, their butts come up, bar speed gets compromised, they start twisting and turning. So now instead of doing, and I can't stand butts coming up on the bench. It's just a pet peeve of mine. Just, that's all I ask, guys. And I say, how many kids have a, because I have back issues. So I'm like, do you want to know what it's like? Do you want me to take you through a fucking day? And not saying that's going to wreck your back, but I'm like, so we found out, at least I did, like, listen, if I want the kids to do it correctly, I can say all this shit till I'm blue in the face, or I could just like, listen, I'm not going to fight this battle. So instead of doing, 3 sets of 5, where some of those reps are going to be shitty, we're going to do 7 minutes or 6 minutes or whatever of doubles, and all those reps are perfect. And then the kids end up getting, 32 reps at their top weight. And I'm like, dude, we're good. It doesn't have to be the fit in this, in the sets thing all the time, unless, like I said, that you need to be able to do 8 reps or something. Then it's kind of a test. But the kids all get stronger that way. And the good thing is, especially during the season, it masks how weak you are. Because if you usually did 225 for 6, I know you can do 225 for, this is a young kid, for like 10 sets of 1. So instead of like, him struggling to get his 3rd rep, he just takes longer rest periods and stuff. And I'm like, see, look how strong you were. He's like, yeah, you did. I mean, look at how many reps. It's more.
Yeah.
And I learned that's the psychological game. You got to play with him. And but that came out during the in season, and it ended up working out perfectly for us. So
when you have them in the off season, then do you have 8s for a month and drop to 6s, or is it just always based upon what you're seeing?
I have a general plan, but unless we kind of have like a testing week, so to speak, I'll go in with a plan, and then, you can walk into a weight room and get a pulse real quick. If everyone's just dragging ass, you're like, listen, man, we're going to do 6 sets or 6 minutes at singles, and then, whatever else we're doing, instead of we're going to, work up to something kind of heavy and then back to whatever. But I've found, we don't do anything like the general old school periodization stuff. It just doesn't work on the main lifts for our kids. They don't have enough rep integrity to do multiple sets like that over. And I always treat the main lifts almost like Olympic lifts for the kids. Doesn't mean we're only doing, I just want them to be strong and powerful all the time.
So what are your main lifts?
The squat, bench press, and trap bar. So, and then, we're always doing some kind of overhead press. We do chin-ups when I say chin-ups, that's, we have all the monkey bars and, pull-ups and all that stuff. We do a ton of those. And what else do we, obviously push-ups, dumbbell squat. That, it's crazy. The dumbbell squat, I always wrote off because, you squat with a barbell and all that stuff. That is by far the most competitive lift in that weight room. I mean, you kids will fucking fight. Like if you did X amount of weight for X reps, that kid gets pissed. You broke my record, and it gets passed around, like, did you hear so-and-so did this? So we had a sophomore last year do 100-pound dumbbell squat for 65 straight reps. And it just hold the dumbbell sometime like this. Like you can't put it over your shoulder. You can't rest it and stuff. It's held like this. Magically, he's great wrestler and great football player and stuff like that. Well, one of the other kids, 1 year older, got wind of that and was not happy because he had the record before him. So he went up, beat it by 5 reps or something. But that's like a big, kids get all pissy about for whatever. And I talked to our head coach. I'm like, who would have ever thought the dumbbell squat of all the lifts that we do in this weight room became like the big pissing match? It used to be curls or bench press. Nope, not here.
Was it because you used it as a metric to be able to see, to test them before they could go heavier on or use a barbell?
I don't think so. I don't know why. I think it's just, I don't know. I just think it's just one of those things, man. And the kids like to do it, which I think is nuts. But we have 150-pound dumbbells, and I think the record at 150 is like 35 straight reps or something like that. But boy, that shit catches up real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Just like when you're doing any kind of dumbbell work, 30s are feeling good, and then 40s like, oh my god,
oh yeah.
I did 10, now I'm barely getting 6 on the 10 at 30. So and just the kids picking that dumbbell up off the ground, because you can't have anyone hand it to you or anything like that. And then the kids end up draping chains over stuff. So some of these kids are handling, I think 3 chains over the 150. So what is that? 22, 44, 66. So it's like almost a 200-pound dumbbell for sets of 10. The arm and trap isometric strength to hold that position is amazing. So, I don't know. I just find it funny because I couldn't imagine that being like your main thing.
Mm-hmm. No.
And sometimes you don't get to choose, Dave. Just, it's what it is, I guess. So
what ends up that,
like, at least it's that.
Well, yeah. I mean,
obviously,
better that than the bench.
Yeah, I know. And obviously squat days are incredibly competitive. Not so much on what weight you're doing. It's how many reps you're getting at whatever weight that you're doing. And then the trap bar is more of a, occasionally I'll let some of the older kids work up, and that starts getting pissy. But it's that it's not like if you and I were there when we were teens, where I would take it personally. If someone broke my record, the kids it doesn't mean that they're super happy when someone breaks the record, but it doesn't keep them up at night like it would me.
Yeah.
And devise a whole training plan. And
what are some of the standards that you have in place for them? As far as how they work together.
How they work together. What do you mean by that?
Or just standards in the weight room as far as ethics?
Well, we have a dress code that's massively enforced. You will get booted if you're not wearing, and it's not like, wear a shirt and tie or anything like that. That's huge. Obviously be on time is huge. Shut the hell up when I'm talking, which is big. And these are like very standard things. And when I ask you to do an exercise, it should be done always right. And that doesn't mean that every set is done perfectly, because it's just not, dude, even today you could be locked in and you could find something wrong. But I looked around because we squatted yesterday, and I was just looking around like, man, look at this. Every kid's going deep. Every kid's, not handling tons of weight, Dave, but like, that's pretty good. Like,
well, I ask because they're going to train to the standard that they're given
all the time. So, we talk about, the technique stuff. I don't have the hammer like a million things, but like, listen, the back can't be rounded. It's just standard, your heels on the ground stuff. Make sure you're hitting around parallel or so. And some kids, like, no one has to squat high. Like, every once in a while you got a kid with a bad hip. We've never had really that case. But there is a standard of, doing what's on your sheet that drives me nuts. And as soon as a kid, if I catch him doing stuff that's not on the sheet, he just doesn't get a sheet anymore. Like, what? You don't need me. So, and then they're like, oh. But yeah, I mean, that's just been forged over the years. Like, listen, we do everything right all the time. I say that a million times a day. And it matters because, we don't have, I always tell the kids, we don't have a ton of talent here, guys. So we need to do the little things right. And this includes, making sure that, we have a thumbs from smooth on the bench, your back is locked in on the trap bar. Even when we do the trap bar, you have to hold every rep at the top for 1,002. So your training partner, whoever is in your group, they stand off to the side and they count it 1,002, and then you slowly go down and then hold at the top rather than just and so I mean that stuff, but it's like the older kids usually maintain that standard. I mean, obviously as a coach you have to hold them to that standard, but it comes more from the older kids after a while. And some kids are a little better at it, some classes are better at it than others, but if you can get your whole upperclassmen, their juniors and seniors locked in.
How long did it take, and how did you develop it from the start? Because a lot of coaches will struggle with this.
Yeah, well, I get asked that all the time, and I said you have to be lucky enough to have a good senior class. If there's got to be a junior class or one of your classes, not your freshmen, with good players in there that are willing to bear that responsibility. Now, my first senior class bore that responsibility. That's the most important class. That was our team that my first off season. Those guys who are going to be seniors in the next year had no reason to trust me, had no reason to invest all this time because the 2016 season was so bad, but they were so mature and held themselves to a high standard that I think that, you can only, that still carries over to this day, still is important. And we had one of our top players from that class come and help us in the weight room, and he still trains like an animal. I mean, just you talk about precision reps, Dave. Like, and when he trains and helps out the kids, like now look at this is the product of what you do everything right all the time, and so I think that's been really good. But it just kind of gets passed down, and obviously you have to, as a coach, keep on doing that. But listen, like you can say something to your blue in the face, but you need some help. It's like doing a big illusion magic trick.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're going to need some help from the outside, doing some of this stuff. It's just not you. It's just like I think there's 5 or 6 rules of special forces, special operators. And one of them is for us to complete the mission successfully, we need a ton of outside help. You need guys feeding us. You need guys, doing the laundry. You need guys, the comms guy, all these different roles. It's not just 7 Navy SEALs going out there blowing. There's a giant team of people
mm-hmm.
that are, and they're just, the tip of the spear, so to speak. But there's a lot of people that come, that have to set that standard. So it just can't come from me, and I just can't set it. You got to have people willing to believe it and willing to put it in action. And that's hard to do. Like I hear from coaches all the time, like the kids just don't care. I'm like, you don't want to say you can't give up, but I'm like, you just keep on doing it, and some group will come about and they're going to have success. And then that will set the standard. Or one kid will do really well in the season and like, oh, what did you do? It's like, well, he was the kid who worked really hard and
mm-hmm.
did what the coach asked. So shit, if I want to get better, now I know that I have now a template to follow as far as standards and attitude and effort, all that stuff too. And it's just, one thing I was telling someone is, the good thing about, for me, training was just give me a program. As long as it's like an athlete, young athlete, all I needed was like a program that made sense to me. I'll supply all the attitude and effort. Don't you worry. Like I'll take care of all that shit. Just give me something that makes sense, where not every kid's like that. Like you need to help get them in the attitude and effort thing. And that's always the hard thing, because I can't really do much with,
mm-hmm.
you can rah a kid to death, but dude, it's not going to happen sometimes.
Yeah.
But I always, admire, like I look back now, I'm like, well, that's one of the reasons why you see so many people who aren't terribly talented may have success, is because as long as you put him in the right direction, he's like, fine, here we go.
Mm-hmm.
Like climb that hill. Fuck it. Let's do it. Like, don't you want to know?
Yeah.
Oh, it's good.
How often do you run across those type of kids?
You will at freshmen and stuff, but they get weeded out like real quick. And so it doesn't really happen that much, but it's not the same as the kid who's like you and I would have been. A huge pain in the ass, basically. It's just, kids just, it's not saying kids are different today. It's just those people are rare. And, I mean, think about that. I mean, just like kid running a 4.340, it's not going to happen very often. So, and I think a lot of it has to do with the kid starts to train a little bit, and then he starts to realize there's a direct relation to the attitude and effort that I give and my success in whatever sport. And it just starts building and building. And that's one of the things, like, you try to get kids in a good situation where they can have success. And that's one thing I really try hard to do so if I tell a kid, listen, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, I know they can do it. And it's the honest to God thing is, if they were operating on all cylinders, they could do, smoking a cig, hungover and all that stuff, but they don't know they can do it. So you give them stuff that they can do that's still challenging. And for example, sometimes on their final sets or something, I'm like, dude, I think you can do 155 here. Really? And I always say the same thing. Like, do you think I would ever put anything in your hands or on your back that I knew you couldn't handle? Or I'll coach them through the squat first, like I'll help spot them and stuff, and I'll talk them through the set. And all of a sudden, they're like, oh my God, like I could do it. And so I try to put little things in there or challenge them on a little conditioning stuff. It's not like it's a big thing all the time, but it might be something small. I remember I did it with dumbbell incline presses with the kid. He never forgot it. I watch him give effort now. Now he knows what effort feels like. Because I took him through a set. He's like, oh my God. I'm like, yeah, welcome to training, buddy. Yeah. You got 6 more sets. Where, before he was just doing 10 reps or whatever. And, but that stuff, the kids hold on to, and they need to be learned. Effort is something that's learned. It's obviously some people have a better talent for it, but you don't know, like when you first went running, you don't know how fast you can go for as long as you can go until you basically go until you pass out. And then you realize, well, shit, I didn't pass out. It's pretty good. And I still remember the first time I ran cross country in junior high, and I was okay. And then one time I was like, I must have been running fairly well because I was catching up to like our top runner. I was like, what's going on? And then I just sprinted and I beat him. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm not that bad and I'm not dead. So, you're like, well, I can probably run a little harder next time. So all that stuff is just a learned thing. But the kids have to be given an opportunity to do that instead of, back off or how do I put this? Shortchanging their standards because you don't want them to someone to feel bad or something like that. I don't know if I'm really putting that the right way, but you gotta, we talk all the time about self-esteem, right? And I think it was maybe when I was a kid, that was one of the big things. We need to build kids' self-esteem. And then they said, well, just tell your kid he's smart and stuff, which is great and all. But the kids have to learn it too. And the best way for our kids to learn that shit, whether it is to give them stuff that they can handle and succeed at, but make it challenging, and then it just starts rolling. And the trick is you don't want to be like, run this, pick up this 500-pound.
Yeah. Well, what I've been trying to figure out is I hear all the time how our younger generation of kids, they don't have a work ethic. They're lazy. It's the same shit they're probably saying about us. But every time I hear that, I'll always ask the person back, do you know this is this for real? Or is this just what you see online?
Yes.
Because what I see in my own life, and it's a bubble. I mean, we're in a bubble. And I understand it's in a bubble, but I don't see that.
No.
So is that just what you hear, or is that what you see?
Yeah. Is that just, you're just parroting what everyone, old crotchety man syndrome? Yeah. No, there's some, it is readily apparent that kids are physically retarded these days. They are. I don't know if that doesn't mean they're retards. It means they're physically just bad.
Well, is it more so than when it was when you were growing up? Right?
It's not even close. Not even close, Dave. I always tell this. I found a sheet of paper in the box that my parents of, like awards and stuff. And it was the sheet that hung in the junior high. and it was all the sixth, seventh, and eighth grade boys, not athletes. This was just gym class of all the mile times because I set the school record. I don't know what, it must have been my sixth grade year or something. I don't know. And so they held the paper because my name was at the top, and I looked at all the numbers, and I think I added it up, and I don't know, there was like 100 and, I don't know, let's just say 100 kids, 100 boys in the, it was more than that. And I think something like 85% ran a 7:30 mile or better. And these are not the athletes, Dave. This is just the school. And I remember kids almost every boy except for a couple could do pull-ups because we used to do the presidential fitness test. And I remember because one of our kids was a really good gymnast. He did. And I remember him just knocking out because I was like, oh, I did 12. And then he did like 30. Yeah. I was like, oh, well, it's because he does gymnastics, but whatever. But there's no way that kind of just general conditioning and running and stuff is even comes close to how it is now. And listen, I'm very upfront with the kids. I'm like, you guys it's just not the same, guys. So we have to make up for lost time, and we can't do all the fancy stuff because you don't even have the basic stuff. And so the easy thing would for me to go online and complain about it. The right thing is to go help out and fix it and do what I can. And, my wife and I are now brainstorming about what we could do at a younger level, in gym class and have standards and stuff like that. The problem is it's just never going to pass. You're never going to get all the parents in the school, the state to even remotely get on board. But we did a powwow session a couple times about what we would teach and stuff. I don't even remember all this stuff, but it's just like basic stuff. Learn how to run, learn how to jump. And it only needs to be about 15 to 20 minutes every single day. But man, even when I train James, his workouts, it could probably be done in 15 minutes if we're really going, but he farts around, uses the stick as a shotgun. But a well-run gym class, and then you can let them go play a sport. Let them learn how to throw a ball and stuff. It's crazy how kids don't know how to do some of this stuff, and it just gives them confidence. So
if we peel that back and then just look at the top 5% and compare that to the top 5% when you were growing up, how would they rank?
It's hard because I grew up in a much more populated area. It's probably about the same, you're not winning championships with 2 kids. You're winning championships with 50 kids. And that's one of my, I know I've probably said this a million times, but my goal is to get my average kid to kick your average kid's ass all over the field, because even in the NFL, you have your superstars and stuff, but most of the guys, they're just in the NFL are the average guys. And they're what make, that's who are making the blocks. Those are the guys doing this and doing that. Not just the linemen, it's all the little stuff. Maybe instead of the superstar receiver, he's making 2 or 3 catches a game every once in a while, not setting the world on fire, but he's doing his job. And so at every level, there's the average guy. And I think if I can bring up that average kid and make our average kids just exponentially better than your average kid, we see it all the time. It's, no matter what, if the kids on the other team, you got 3 kids who are going to Ohio State, Alabama, and Georgia, it doesn't matter how many push-ups you've done and stuff like that. It's just, you can't. And then what are you going to do? You can't really do anything. You can scheme all you want, but for the most part, we're going to play teams with a couple good kids like we have, but most of them, the rest of the kids are average. And so now if we get everyone, I think generally our team average on the trap bar is 415 or 425. That's good. And it's well, we had a kid who did 600. I'm well, it's great, but we got everyone doing it. Everyone can do 10 pull-ups, even our linemen. And now that's when you really start stacking bodies. Our average is just awesome.
So it's easier for the average kid today that applies himself than it would have been decades ago.
It's easier to become, if you're a little below average, it's easier to get to average today because the average is really not that high.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess that's a good way to put it. But even back in the day, if you lifted and did all that stuff, you were going to be exponentially better than the kids who didn't, because that really wasn't, I mean, the kids were physically fit, but that one little training thing, like our 7th and 8th grade football teams were stupid good. I think in the last maybe 2 years between the 7th grade and 8th grade team, I don't know if we've given up a total of more than 30 points total between two teams. And like the 8th grade team one year, they scored 298 points and gave up 3. It's like, geez. And that's just, again, because we have the kids lifting, obviously a lot of coaching in there too. The coaches are really good, but I mean, think about that. It's just like,
well, they're prepared, they're in shape.
Yeah. And again, you get, people will hem and haw about, we need to do 5 reps, 10, whatever. I'm like, if you get a kid who can just do the trap bar correctly and do push-ups and chin-ups, man, you are way ahead of everyone else. And so it doesn't have to be that fancy. It just, we have to be consistent and just get them a little more physically fit. So that's another thing. Like, yes, I want to have strength standards, but really my goal is to make those kids what I call physically fit. And that includes muscles, strength, and, being able to jump. We just want them physically awesome. And whatever that is for that kid, that's fine with me, because everyone's going to start obviously at a different level. And, some kids don't have the nutrition at home, and that hold kids back. Oh my God. And, they don't have the support at home. And some of those stories are terrifying. And I don't know, like I grew up in a really awesome household and stuff. And for the most part, every one of my friends did. And then you hear some of these stories. It's like, oh my God, how are you legally able to have a kid still? So it's very heartbreaking, but those kids, we live in a really good community here in London where they will get taken in by other families. Maybe not officially, but they'll live there, for 2 or 3 years at someone else's house, and they'll feed them and stuff like that. So that's, and it's always like never done to embarrass the kid or anything like that. But it's like, man, kids realize, like, dude, this is fucked up. It's not supposed to be like this, because I look over here and you guys are okay. So your mom's not smoking crack all the time, God, what a horrible way to grow up. Anyway.
So have you found with those kids that the training changes them?
Yeah, I think the training does help, but it's the entirety of it all.
Yeah.
Being part of something bigger than themselves, having a purpose, like, listen, you matter. Like, what you do here matters. And so I think that probably more, and that's, the training's part of it, obviously, but it's not the only thing, because they're again, they don't take the same things from training that you and I did, where it was like it or not, it was probably a little too much of our identity.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, well, what are you going to do? But yeah. And I think, the more that I think when I was, I don't know, 10 years ago or 15 years ago, like, I always wanted to be happy. And now I just want to serve. Like, I want to have purpose, because without purpose, you're just kind of floating in the wind. And the older I get, I'm like, well, I have a purpose. It's not like, I always say I'm not, and I guess I'm a dad, but guys need more than that. Like, I need something with dudes.
Yeah. Well, with the younger kids, I guess they can default their purpose into the playing football.
Yeah.
Being part of the team.
Yeah. I tell the kids too, when they graduate, I'm like, you be as selfish as you can be for the next 15 to 20 years, or next 15 years. Don't get swayed to go do this, take chances. Like, and I always, when I write these letters to the kids, and I'm like, man, I don't hope the parents, when they read this, like, they're not like, shoot heroin when you jump off a cliff.
Yeah.
The high is so much better. But there's an age where you need to be selfish with your time and your effort and all that stuff. But once you get to a certain point, then you live to serve and help the, it doesn't mean you go to the high school and do this. It's just something else. And kind of pass down, you talk about passing down and stuff like that. That's, but for me, like, being part of like a team again is super important. And it's something like that I can contribute and I want to contribute, instead of, I always say my mom fed the homeless for years and years, and she loved doing it. She loved cooking. I'm like, I don't want to fucking serve them. I hate cooking, and they're stinky,
Yeah.
I don't want to do this. And I always like, and so most of the people, when they think service and stuff like that, before and after the military, it's like, helping this and that. And like, dude, there's other ways you can be of purpose. But for me, I always, I like being part of it, kind of a group going all one way.
Well, I think a lot of people have a hard time trying to navigate what
It's
their
hard.
purpose is.
Well, because everything's so selfish and, and I don't know. There's a lot of, but I think it's hard because I think we get, as men, everyone says like your family's your purpose. I'm like, that's great, but it's not cutting the bills, buddy. Like,
Well, what I say is if they can't figure out how to navigate it themselves, somebody will figure it out for them.
yeah. And, maybe that's not always a bad thing, but sometimes all of us, like, if I worked at McDonald's, I wouldn't feel any purpose to help, make the best Big Mac. That doesn't mean you do a bad job, but like you got to feel like you're part of the crew.
I mean, they're all part of the team, but they're not really in it until they see what they want to see.
Yeah, but that can be shown during practice. That could be shown in a JV game. So I think that you hate to say, well, it can only show up during a varsity game. Well, then you're not going to feel like you're part of the team.
Yeah.
Until you get to play. And so then it's like a catch-22, but you can still do that by kicking ass in the weight room, always showing up, having a good attitude, and the kids will automatically be okay with you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that gives you enough clout. And then I was talking to the head coach. I'm like, let's give some of these younger kids some reps here and there on stuff that you can kind of hide them during the game, because now they feel like shit. I got purpose. And, that set of squats I did, that matters now. Now it matters what I do. So, but that's hard to do too. Again, you got to have,
Well, it has to be earned, right? Because I think a part of that is trust.
Yeah. And that's where the off season stuff comes in. And that's why practicing hard comes in. And that stuff's hard to do. I know. When I was on scout team, do you feel like you don't matter? And then, I think a lot of coaches can do a better job. It's just hard because they got a million things to do. And that's where the individual has to step up a little bit and take it upon himself. It's not just always the coaches. And then again, but on the college level, that's not their job to babysit every one of you. It doesn't mean that, they can't facilitate making you feel part of the team, but that's a whole other level of maturity that you need to bring to the, before you need to bring that maturity with you. It can be helped along by other means in high school and junior high and stuff like that. But once you get to a certain level, it's like, the bus is going this way. You climb on or not, man. Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
There's people that will replace you. So, but yeah. And I thought, some kids do it better than others. And it's hard. The one thing I always tell is like, it's hard for me to apply. I'm 48 years old. Like, I have to constantly remind myself, don't expect 48 years of maturity in a 16-year-old kid, because that's really unfair. Like, don't you know how important this is? Like, no, why would I give a shit? So, and I didn't realize it. No one does. And that's why I'm there. to help kind of move it along, but it's still hard to do. Yeah, the funny thing is, I wish more parents would hold their kids back 1 year, because that 1 extra year makes a giant difference. Every once in a while, we get a kid whose parents had the foresight to hold them back, not because of academics.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, their birthday falls in a weird time.
Yeah.
Like, let's back it up a little bit. And just that extra year of maturity, like, holy cow, like, it's like talking to a human being when you talk to them instead of like talking to a kid. It's very funny what an extra year will do. So, sometimes I wonder. I could never picture myself doing this shit now, like 20 years ago.
How so?
I never thought I'd be so unselfish, and I never thought like I would have more fun and more I guess appreciation and fulfillment, and like not that's just me being selfish, but even professional fulfillment doing this, because they're always for at least in my estimation, like the ultimate strength coach was always the college guys, because there's too many rules in the NFL. Like too much of the, you can't coach then, you can't do this. And then you got some guy who's, like, I don't need to listen to you. I got my own guy. We're in college. It was a little different. And then you go to college and you realize that's not how it all is. So, Juliet always asked me, she's like, how much would it take for you if a college came to you? I'm like, well, it'd have to be the right situation. But I'm like, you'd have to pay me a lot of money, because like, why would I want to deal with some of this shit where I don't have to deal with any of it here? Like, I just have to be a strength coach. It's all I have to do. Maybe I'd hire like an admin guy. Like, listen, you're just,
yeah,
he has to look like me. He goes to all the meetings. Like, like you're gonna have to get all his tattoos.
Yeah, clone. We're probably not that far off of that, right?
So I always, and that's the hard thing about, it's always it's like when we were playing some team and it was 63-0, in the third quarter, and I'm looking up at the stands and we're scoring again and people are like this. I was like, these fuckers have no idea how much work goes into a 63-0 game after three quarters. There's a lot shit. Like, you think we just showed up and just ran this play and ran that play? Like, how much time we spent just to get to the point where we could just destroy people. And it's just like anything else. It's like you see a band who's playing all tight on stage and going crazy, and it's like, you think they don't practice this shit all the time and have honed their craft? You think they just get up every night and just we'll see what happens? It doesn't work like that. So but it's been very fulfilling. So and I don't know, like, some kid asked me, he's like, you going to be here when I'm a senior? And I was like, I hope so, because I'll probably be, if not, I guess I'm dead. Like, it's only 3 years from now. I don't see myself going anywhere. That was really depressing. Like, it's like, kid, how old do you think I am?
Yeah.
You still going to be?
You've lived more years than you have left. When you realize that, it's a little fucked up.
Yeah. Well, I realized, if you add 20 years, I'll be 68. And then you take off and it's 28. It's like, man, 28 seemed like wow, seemed like yesterday. So anyway, but yeah, what else is going on there, Dave?
I got to take a piss real quick.
I'll go piss too. Yeah.
Elite FTS was founded in 1998 with the aim to live, learn, and pass on. We've done this through training-related content that allows you to become the strongest athlete and coach that you can. Over the past 2 decades, actually 2.5 decades, we've published more complimentary training media than anybody else in the industry. When you look at the number of articles, the Q&As, the blogs, the videos, the podcasts, there's over 1 million pages of content that we've put out there. We've been able to do this through your support of Elite FTS. So when you purchased Elite FTS strength equipment, bands, accessories, gear, apparel, or anything through the site, you directly help support the content that we put out, which in turn helps support other people on their journey of becoming stronger and better coaches. So stronger athletes and better coaches, which encompasses the aim and the vision to live, learn, and pass on. So I thank you for the support that you've been giving for the past 25 years and encourage you to keep supporting Elite FTS into the future so we can all help more people become better and stronger. Discount code Table Talk for 10% off your first order. All right, guys, if you like the Table Talk podcast, then you're going to love the crew. If you're struggling with trying to get through a sticking point, you're trying to figure some specific aspect of your training out that you just can't dial in, you're dealing with injuries, you're trying to figure out how to better optimize your training, all the stuff you're seeing on social media is confusing, and all you need is a little guidance and support, or just somebody to look at your lifts to make sure that they're either heading in the right direction, or if there's a weak point in the lift, they can point out what that weak point is. Well, that's what we have the crew for. So when you join the crew, you get an extra Table Talk podcast each month called the Crewcast. You also get access to our Discord community, which has a training Q&A, form checks with top coaches, mindset section, nutrition, training logs, programs, over 30 ebooks, plus exclusive ebooks just for the crew, webinars, lectures, seminars, giveaways ranging from full strength equipment. We've given away many yoke bars this year. We've given away actually pieces of strength equipment as well as accessory items, and you get exclusive crew discounts. So go to the link in the description that says join the crew, click it, join now, and start getting stronger today. All right, guys, we've got a new limited edition drop, the original Mountain Dog tee that John Meadows had us design from the very beginning. So it's the first tee that he had made. Once again, this is a limited edition item, so when they're gone, they're gone. While I have your attention, you've seen me wear this one in a few podcasts to date. We've been holding back on it. This here, the 4-star tee, I think that's what we call it. It's on the website. New items, also under limited edition. Check out our shoulder saver pads. It's an easy way to do limited restricted range of motion exercises like board press that basically you just pop the pad on the bar, reduces the range of motion, pop it back off when you're done. Thank you guys for the support. Head over to elitefts.com. Today's episode is brought to you by Element, a tasty electrolyte drink mix with everything that you need and nothing that you don't. In other words, no sugar, no artificial coloring, no artificial ingredients, no gluten, no fillers, and no BS. With Element, I love the watermelon. The watermelon tastes freaking awesome. I drank 1 pack every day, no matter what. People that train out here, it's sitting out here for them all the time. The boxes don't last very long. Right now, Element is offering Table Talk listeners a free sample pack with any purchase. That's 8 single-serving packages free with any Element order. Get yours at drinkelement.com/Table Talk. The deal is only available through the link in the description. The other thing is if you don't like it, you can just give it away to a salty friend and Element will give you a 100% refund. No risk, money back guarantee. Head over to drinkelement.com/Table Talk. You guys are selecting Merrick for your telehealth platform needs. They have a couple different ways that they go about doing this. The first is through a self-selected experience. So there's a Table Talk panel, which is the full panel. That would be the panel that I personally get twice a year. That's checking everything. You name it, it's all there. The other panel is a checkup panel with a guided optimization. You're connected with a patient care coordinator, and the patient care coordinator will meet with you to determine what your needs are. Thing to be able to help optimize your health or mitigate without judgment. So the discount code again is Table Talk Merrick Health for all your hormone optimization and performance needs. I have some questions that came from our Discord server, which
What is it?
What's a Discord server?
No,
We have, well, with the podcast, we set up, you know how you have your forum?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like that. So it's we call it the VIP crew for people that want to help support the podcast, they can join that. Then on there, they can ask questions for the podcast. They get an extra podcast. They get form checks, programs, all kinds of shit. Normally, I get better questions from them than if I just went to Instagram and said, hey, what do you want? Then we get 800 of the same questions that were there before. This one stuck out. And it would, because it's changed over time, as you were talking about a little bit with purpose, is, you know, what is your metric for success? And this would be for personal.
Oh boy. Like what would I be happy with? I just want my kids to speak fondly of me. That's it. I don't care about I think, you know, maybe 15 or 20 years ago or whatever, you know, you want your name to live on and stuff like that, right? Like all that other stuff. I've said this before, and then you realize like you can't even name all the presidents. I'm like, that seems awfully narcissistic of me to think like my name's going to live on if you don't even know who the, you know, James Buchanan is. You know, he's the president. It's like, and then I started realizing, like, if you ask anyone in basically anywhere on earth, for the most part, everyone's going to know Jesus Christ or and Adolf Hitler. Like, those seems like I thought about that. I was like, this, like, they carry some weight.
Mike Tyson, Elvis.
But even those guys, like, you know, but I'm like, everyone kind of knows, you know, and I'm like, man, that's, I don't know if I can do what they did.
Yeah.
I don't know if I wanted to. And so I think I had like that kind of realization. I even told Mason, you know, and I told Juliet, I'm like, listen, you know, after I die, you guys are free to do whatever you want with this stuff. And I'm like, if you want to make some money on it, to go ahead. If not, just let it die. It's fine with me. Like, I'm not that, I don't have that need, because I just, you know, you think about how many people, I thought about this, how many people on this earth have existed that have no photograph of them, you know? This majority of people that ever lived, right? Like, there's nothing. Just never know.
Yep.
I don't know. It's just a really like fucked up way of looking at stuff. So I think that if I was going to measure success, I just, you know, want Mason and James to be like, oh, you're my dad. Oh my God. You know what he'd say? Like right now, if you saw this gameplay, and then they would compare notes and laugh like, so I guess that would probably be the only thing. And, you know, wife and kids, you know, and I want to make sure my parents are still proud and happy about me. And I think they are, at least they tell me they are. So, but I don't think, you know, having my name on a building or being talked about fondly in the strength world is really going to mean that much to me at the end of the day. I mean, you like to see it, and you like, you know, hopefully the kids that I coach, you know, they learn some lessons and they enjoyed the time and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I think the kid and wife thing would probably be the most important thing to me. And it's like, it's, you know, we always talk about having measurable goals. Like you can't really measure, you know, all that stuff. But, you know, one of the cool things is my oldest son, his girlfriend's like, I always know when you're talking to your dad. You guys exactly the same, you know, I could hear and that makes me laugh, because I'm like, you know, I didn't get to spend a ton of time with Mason, but as I've gotten older, I talk to him every single day, and it's awesome to see. At least I've had a bigger influence on him than I realized. So that's been really cool. But she's like, you guys are like the same person, but he's still calling up and asking for advice, and like, your job is never done. Like, I still call my old man up, like, dude, I don't know what to do about this. And he'll talk me through it. It's like the parent's job is never done. And so, yeah, I guess that would probably be it. Yeah, I don't know. It was you know, I guess you get older and you realize what matters and what doesn't. And I'm not saying, you know, I always like to say everything matters, but to have your name be, I don't have any illusions of immortality. I'm all right with that. Like, what are you gonna do?
At a realization about
Well,
it.
like, either that or I just gotta go kill 6 million Jews. Like, and I don't hate the Jews, and I don't have that kind of energy.
Yeah.
You know,
or
yeah,
start a cult that's extremely popular.
Yeah, yeah, you know. So it's just not something. I don't know. I think most people eventually come to that realization too. And I mean, think about how lucky I have been, where I get to influence more people than the average person. It's not like I'm, Michael Jordan or anything like that, but the majority of people just kind of exist, and that doesn't mean that I think their lives are harder sometimes because they'll never get any credit no matter what. We always like to give, the popular people or the Navy SEALs all the credit, but like we said, there's a whole group of people behind them that you'll never know.
Yeah.
And the SEALs know, though, the Tom Brady knows, the guy that, helped him with his cleats or something. What, I'm just making shit up now. Maybe the equipment guy was a huge part of, his success. So, and for that equipment guy, he's just in the shadows. And I think that's sometimes they'll never get any credit. They just go to work, put food on the table. They're not asking you to pat them on the back either, just what I do. So on that front, I mean, I've been very lucky. I mean, I have had the best life I could ever imagined so far. So, I mean, there's obviously been ups and downs, but when you compare everything in the big picture, I mean, I was born in the United States. Oh my God. I saw a picture of someone took, and it was like the bachelor's dream, and it was like mattress laying in the middle of like a 1-room apartment, and there's no box spring.
Mm-hmm.
And and it had like a charger and the phone on the floor, and then like his 9mm and like a TV like that's on the floor, like butted up. And what's that? In an Xbox. Yeah, in an Xbox. Yeah, with thankfully a cordless controller, because and as I just think about like how lucky we are to be able to defend ourselves. I mean, we're like the only country that's a human right. Like you have the right to defend yourself, and I'm like, God, that's awesome. Because there's some dude in Australia who's really into lifting and all this other stuff that he never has that right. So, man, you talk about a good roll of the dice. So that's not lost on me. I tell my kids all the time, like, listen, these aren't to be negotiated. These rights, you don't get to choose. The higher ups don't get to choose how you do these things. That's probably Mason right now. But you know what I'm saying? Like it's not bartering. Like these are they're God given, so to speak. So I apologize. All right.
Sorry. You want to take it?
No,
because we can pause just like a bathroom break. It's not live.
Put it on speakerphone.
To your point, I had a realization about a decade ago, after being to more funerals than I care to speak about. It was that if you really pay attention, and this was one that I probably didn't really want to be at, right? So if you look real close, you got the casket, then you have the people that are closest to the casket, family, stuff like that. Then as you work your way back to the room, the conversation shifts, right? So the people in the back are kind of like, how much FaceTime do we need? Cracker Barrel's down the street, right? And then the people who aren't even there, right? And then my perspective changed. It's like, so why do I give a fuck
about the people at the Cracker
Barrel? About the people that aren't even there, first off, that are just talking shit or whatever they're doing? And why do I not care more about the people that are going to be closest?
Or why do the people that are closest get the worst of me sometimes?
Yes.
And then that I always say, well, that's because they love you. Yeah. So I always say, like, well, sorry, honey.
Yeah.
You're getting the shitty version of me right now. But anyway, I totally get what you're saying. Yeah. And you spend all your time trying to appease people that won't even be there. Yeah.
at the expense of those that you're closest to.
Yep. That's a good way of looking at it. It's the circle of influence, and this little, the casket circle, so to speak. There,
Yeah. Now you got to take care of those people, so there is that, right? So I'm not saying that you can't do all these other things, because you want to be able to take care of the people that are closest to you. And so there's that balance with that for sure.
I remember thinking when we really started getting bigger and bigger, I was like, man, it's crazy to think that the circle of influence went from guys on the team to, it just got bigger and bigger as we got more popular. And I'm like, God, it's crazy to think that my circle of influence is much bigger than I ever could imagine. I'm like, God, that means that I can't take all that lightly. That doesn't mean you can't fuck around and have a good time. But then you think of someone like Elon Musk, you talk about responsibility. Like, yes, he's got his family, and it's like, man, that's a heavy burden to bear sometimes, man. And that's a tough thing for some people to understand. And, the problem is like, I see guys, with their circle of influence, and it's like, man, they can't even make one mistake. They make one wrong move or something like, then all of a sudden that company's bankrupt. It's
yeah. Yeah. Well, there's other ones that I don't think enough about the fact that they are a role model.
Yep.
Right. And when you're in that position, sometimes you got to watch, a little bit closer. Your standards need to be a little higher.
I know. Because Juliet's like, remember, some parents are going to probably watch this. And I'm like,
yeah. But in a way, we were kind of lucky, because we got all the criticism and all the bullshit early.
Yep.
Before social media. So by the time all that hit, it's like, whatever, dude.
We got grandfathered.
Yeah, I've already seen these emails, a long time ago. Like, who gives a fuck? Yeah. Yeah. So you're a bot. You have no name, whatever.
Yeah. Well, it's the, you get some, Dr. Ken said it best when someone criticized him. This was obviously 20 years ago. And someone said, hey, Dr. Ken, so-and-so is talking shit about you online. He's like, well, show me, And so he brought up the forum, and he's looking, he's like, well, who is this guy? And he's like, I don't know, it's Worm Eater 483. He's like, well, who is it? Like, he never trained here. Why the fuck would I care?
Yeah.
It's like an old man perspective. Why would I give a shit what this guy thinks? And it was like, oh, all right.
Nobody's good, right? I mean,
but it was funny because it was like, what are you going to do?
Those were the influences that we had to learn how to navigate that stuff, though. Louis was the best. I remember we asked him once about, God, who was it? And it wasn't derogatory in any way. I think it was Mike Boyle. Like, we asked him a question about Mike Boyle, and he's like, who the fuck is that?
I remember we went around West Side one time asking a bunch of the lifters about certain people, guys, that had clout supposedly in our strength world. And not a single dude could even tell you one guy. No. Like, I mean, and part of it was like, they're like, hey, what are you going to do? Let's just go bench. Like, it never even entered their mind to go outside of the gym.
I know, it was Apolloquin was one of those, because I remember that one. Like, who the fuck is that? Like, what's he squat? That was the other thing.
Yeah.
Like, so what's he squat?
It was just, I remember asking Big Mike Ruggieri about it. He's like, huh. And he's like, we doing belt squats? Because he's like, Mike, I'm self-conscious about my quads.
Yeah.
I was like, that was quick conversation.
Yes. Meanwhile, we're like, what the fuck?
And it consumed us because we lived in that world, man. I still remember we went to, it wasn't the first SWIS, but it was still in Canada, obviously. And we were sitting at the opening remarks, and you and I were sitting, next to each other, and they put a picture up of one of the speakers, and one of the speakers was deadlifting 405. And the people behind us were like, oh my God, what is that? Four plate? What is that? It's 405. What? Oh my God. And I was like, I did that as a freshman in high school. I mean, it was bad back and, rounded back, but I'm like, it's really not that big of a deal. And it's like, man, what a weird, those, the SWIS thing's weird because there's two, at least, especially back in the day, because we were such outliers that there was such a divide between us and even the other strength people. And and I always tell the kids when they ask me some stuff, I'm like, it's hard to understand that I remember lifting with Chicken Hawk and people would ride Chicken Hawk because he had like a 550 bench. And I was like, imagine that, like that being the guy, the punching bag about his bench press. That's an awesome bench press.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know? And it's just, and even when I first got to London, I had to like, oh my God, like I forgot, like this is part of strength training is, you know, the 20-pound dumbbells just being all over the place. Like, why don't you just lock it in? And
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I've been living in my matrix for too long.
That first SWIS though was interesting because the first one we went to, because we didn't give a fuck either. Right.
No, I just figured like, hey, we're gonna sell some stuff. And,
yeah, I don't. Looking back,
we'll meet.
We're
Martin.
so far out of our element
God.
that we didn't know, but didn't care. I remember the booth. I didn't know we were going to have a booth.
It was a card table.
So we found a card table, and everybody else had these backdrops and curtains.
Like, well, you probably can't see it. I don't know. Yeah. Well, those things were expensive. I remember I asked you or something like, we should get one of those. Like, dude, it's like, it was well out of our price range.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I couldn't believe it's like when you hear about the old Arnold prices of the booths. Oh, shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
How much money do you guys make on creatine? And like, right? Those supplement companies. Oh my Lord.
We're just sitting there with our spit cups with the fucking napkins in them.
How much longer? Just everything on this table.
Yeah. Somebody did come by and was like, boom, we're done. Like cash for all of it. We're done.
Yeah. Listen.
Off to the clubs.
Yep. We got to go. I got a date with wings and boobies.
Yep. Yeah.
At the same time.
Yep. And then, God damn, that was funny. That was funny. I didn't know there was a difference between currency.
Oh yeah.
I think it was Ed Cohn told me that after the first time, like, what the fuck are you doing?
You got to change those to the Canadian. You just gave her like $1,000.
Oh yeah. Oh my God.
That's why they keep coming back to you, David. They don't like you. What? She told me she liked me.
Yeah. Yeah. It was interesting thinking back because of who was there. And then, you know, what status in the industry they had. We didn't simply give a fuck at all.
No, because I remember Dick Hartzell being there. I remember Sif was there.
Yeah.
I will never forget the only time Sif was walking with like a couple of his dudes, you know, younger guys. And he just walked up to our booth and said, you know, Dave, I can't find any mentions of plyometrics in the old Soviet books. And then he just walked away. And I was like, all right. It was something like that. It had something to do with plyometrics or something. And I was like, all right, good times.
Yep. When can we eat? Gotta go.
But he was a character too. Like you talk about him and Louis. I mean, you talk about dudes that were just in their own orbit, man. They had nothing to do with, and I'm sure there's a whole bunch of those old, you know, Dr. Ken there's a whole group of those guys that were just kind of in their own little world. That was back before, obviously, well before social media and well before the internet really took off. But
were you at Westside the time he came in and he had a bag full of vegetables? He had a suitcase full of like peas.
I wasn't there.
Oh yeah. So he came in to watch. It was a Friday dynamic squat day. So he came in and he's like hovering around by the squat. Then when we started, he disappeared in the back corner behind the reverse hyper.
He just ate his
had a small suitcase with like a suitcase with vegetables in it. And then afterwards, when we went to lunch, he was shocked because of how
everyone ate.
Well, no, that probably too, but he was used to seeing Soviets and respect the barbell.
Yeah.
And we had zero respect for the barbell. You know, just for him, just stepping over a barbell was like an ethical nightmare, right? And we're like throwing plates and probably speed pulled that day, just throwing shit all over the place. And that's why he secluded himself in the corner with his yeah.
I remember a friend of mine spent because he was in Colorado, right? Sif was, or at least I know at this time he was. And my buddy spent I don't know. They had like a training week or something like that. And he said like he never slept, or if he did, he goes, I never saw him. He'd be up and he goes, he would just eat a head of lettuce, like a iceberg lettuce, like like an apple. He's like, dude, he was a weird dude.
I did 3 of those things with him, and one of them was on Thanksgiving. And he had like 15 people in attendance, and he was a vegetarian.
Yeah.
So when we got there, he took the turkey, and in the wrapping, whatever you want to call it, tied a rope to it, threw it in his hot tub. And that's how he was going to thaw the turkey. And by the time it came to actually eating the turkey, it was so bad. It wasn't cooked. It was just gross that everybody was like throwing it in their napkin, to try to hide it. We had corn. It was basically all that we had. And then somebody that night, bolted out to McDonald's and came back with like 50 cheeseburgers or something that saved but he didn't sleep at all.
Yeah.
And then I had a room with a bed. Everybody else was like on cots in this basement. And he would, in the middle of the night, this dog would be barking. It's fucking him.
Yeah, yeah.
You go down there and start barking like a dog just to freak everybody out and fuck with them all.
He was a socially awkward man.
A little bit. just a little bit.
Yeah, it was I don't know. He would not, I remember he used to have like the super training group online or something. It was before forums, I think.
Really the mailing group.
Yeah, and I remember going through some of that. It was hard to read the way that it was formatted, but I remember reading some of that stuff, and I'm like, thinking like, who does this pertain to? Because I don't know anyone that this is even applicable to. Like, I always wondered about that stuff. I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm just a dummy. But I see some of that stuff. Even, I got asked a question the other day about some kind of training thing, and I went and looked at it, and I'm like, I don't know, like, who are you guys training? Because my kids don't look like any of this. Like, these guys are jacked out. Like, are these kids high school players? Like, what are you doing? And so I don't know. I always there's such a disconnect between a lot of that stuff and then what you see on, like we talked about the social media, only the crazy sets that you see. Well, the great coach on social media is not going to put up their kid who just an average kid. He's not going to, for the most part, it's not going to, make the big, get all the likes and stuff like that. So,
well, the best coaches don't have the time to post.
No, I've known a couple really good coaches, and they have zero online presence. And one of the best coaches I've ever seen. He was a great athlete as it was, and his conditioning was really good, but more so his ability to control his breathing and just lay waste to high end dudes conditioning, because he could breathe and learn. He used to do some of his conditioning smoking when he conditioned with his other athletes, and just puff a butt and put it down, push the prowler, just to make his other athletes feel like shit. Those kind of stories to me are priceless. Like just a character. And but yeah, I don't even know if he's online. I don't know. I mean, I guess I could look, but I've never seen anything recently in the last 15 years or so. So
when did you start the YouTube thing, the Q&As?
The live streams. So we started doing videos with Mason, and it became hard to get like files to him quick enough. It just became like a whole thing. And because he's out in Arkansas, and we tried doing like sending videos through, there's like a service that you can send big files, but it would still take forever, like forever. So then I was like, well, I'll just shoot the videos, put them on a hard drive. And now I'm like, well, now I'm kind of at the mercy of the USPS, because they lost one of them. So now we were kind of screwed. And then we definitely underestimated how much he's got classes and stuff, and he's working, he's doing an internship now. I'm like, listen, dude, don't worry about it. I'm going to try doing one of these live stream things and just see how it goes. And I still need to work out some of the kinks. But I don't know. I think, dude, the best part, I think I've been doing it for, I don't know, maybe 3 months now. The best part is making the thumbnails by far, because I make the most ridiculous thumbnails I could think of. And it's like so when I first joined a thumbnail making service, I went on there and just worked out some of the bugs, and I probably made like 8 thumbnails, and Juliet and James were, I don't know, doing something. And she called me, and I'm laughing. I'm like, man, wait till you see how, and I was completely did this to entertain myself. I mean, I don't think anyone thinks that they're that enjoyable, except I do. And she was so happy. She's like, I've never seen you so happy. Like, because I'm like, I'm just enjoying making, the dumbest thumbnails I could find.
Pull up his YouTube real quick.
Yeah.
I've seen him, but I want to be reminded.
Here's, let's see here. Uh-oh. But I still have to do one. What is today? So usually I try to get it done by Wednesday. And you probably have to go to live, maybe. So that the most recent one, it says, question, morning routine blowhards. Is there anyone worse? And then the next one is thoughtfully looking away. Top secret lifting knowledge the government doesn't want you to know. Training with corpse paint. That's a black metal thing from Norway and Sweden and Finland that says, is it cultural appropriation? That one, that's a total sellout.
Yeah.
No. So it says a Q&A. I can't even read that. An academic analysis of the vocal poetry of Thomas Enrique Araya Diaz. That's the singer for Slayer.
Yeah.
How to be a social liability while being sober. And mostly dudes. Learn the secrets of the movie stars. Drop a deuce. Have a listen. I'm sure it's optional. That's what I call our kids, swinging Richards. A bunch of dicks. Some of them are pretty normal, but
yeah.
Friday with Wendler, the science is settled. No one likes you.
All right, so the Q&A has nothing to do with the Q&A. No. It's just you want to post the thumbnail.
I just love doing that shit. And so I get a kick out of that. And I've had a couple ones where I just couldn't think of anything, or I just wasn't ready for it and stuff like that. But you know how those thumbnails are.
Yeah.
I saw one of your thumbnails where you did like the 5 thing, and I could just see the disgust on your fucking face when you're like,
they do.
Yeah. Like 5 reasons why tricep exercise. And you're like,
yep.
Let's get
how much engagement?
5, Dave, not 1.
Yeah. How much engagement? It doesn't even matter if it is 5.
Yeah, I know.
It's just a.
Yeah, I know. We used to do those articles.
Yeah.
We figured that shit out real quick. It's instead of how to bench press is 5 tips to increase your bench press. I remember we would sit on the shit and read like Men's Fitness and stuff like that. Yeah. And then be like, dude, of course I'm going to click. It's it's toilet fucking reading. How much engagement?
Yeah. How's the engagement been? I mean,
they're doing a normal video. You get a ton more of engagement once you post it, but the live streams are fueled by the questions.
Yeah.
And we get a ton. Now there's a lot of repeat guys. Like you kind of have a group of guys, but there's been always, about 50% of people I don't know. Like I haven't heard don't know their screen names and stuff like that. So the engagement, and I'm talking, there hasn't been a time yet where I haven't looked up, because we do it for 1 hour. And where I haven't looked up, and it's like the earliest I've looked up and like, holy shit, has been 10:44. So we start at 10 and end at 11. And it's just a constant stream. Now, if I was smart, which I'm not, I would go through those videos and take short clips, but and I know how to do it. It's just a matter of time of doing it. So you take,
so there's enough quality questions coming in to keep it going.
Yeah, there's a ton of stuff. And they're generally good questions. And the only things like I have trouble with are like, hey, on page 84, I'm like, dude, I'm not looking up page 84. And it's like, I'm not gonna just go and get off camera and go get a book or something like that. But so one time I went on and I mistakenly put the video private.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there, I'm like, holy shit, dude. Because usually
They all hate you now.
About an hour before, all the questions start coming in, because you can submit the chat questions there. And I pressed, go live. And I'm like, dude, there's no questions here. So I'm like, I don't even know. Like, and I was like, oh, here we go. Like, so that was like a huge blow to the ego, right? Because I'm like, dude, the last 3 times, dude, it's just been crazy. And I don't know what did I say something? I'm like, I said something. I know I did. And, but that's been like, I love doing, like, even when we do like the SWIS stuff or something like that, or have the seminar really takes off when it's just you and me or whoever, like, and it's just like, hey, let's just answer questions. You guys came here to get questions answered. And I always feel like when you do a speaking gig, like, you came here to have your questions answered, not to hear me just blow hard about whatever. That doesn't mean you can't give a short 10-minute presentation, but let's, and I love going out in the audience and doing stuff and engaging with people. And I'm like, this is like, I enjoy the live stream. I really enjoy it. Now, making videos is a pain. Yes.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Now, if you have like a video crew and someone to do all that other stuff, but I'm not willing to write the script and then you screw up and you got to go over the camera and just, this and that. And like, it just, because that's besides writing the script and shooting the video, now you got to do everything else. Yeah. It's just like, I'm like, but I can just go on so I need to get like a webcam because I want the quality to be a little better, and like a microphone. And I think that's probably the next thing I'll probably do. So at least the picture quality is a little better. And it's not like I don't have like a high-end Mac. Like, this is the best they could fucking do.
Yeah.
I just, by the way, a day before the college football playoffs, my downstairs TV just took a dump. And so we ended up buying a TV. Juliet that morning, because I was furious, just fuck. Like, as if I've had the worst luck in my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why does this happen to me? So she got in her car like an hour later and went to Best Buy and I told her what TVs I wanted to look at. And we had the Geek Squad come out and mount, do all that stuff. But the TV that I have now, like, the picture quality, it's so stupid. And I don't know, we grew up with one TV in our house. It was a 19-inch Sony. And I think now 19-inch Sony, like, no wonder my eyes are so bad.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably why I was in such good shape, because you had to go up and because I was
turn the knob.
Yeah. And then you had the UHF and VHF. Do you remember?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But I was like, dude, I have a Mac, and you're telling me this Mac camera is this, like, it felt like I'm using like a shit can. It's horrible. Is it right? Is it?
Talk to me afterwards.
All right. And I just need like a base, like the microphone. The microphone seems to work fairly well, but it always looks cool though when I watch guys that got like like this, like like I know what I'm doing. Like, I got something. This is very important.
Yeah, I like the ones where the microphone's not even on and you can tell.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like on
a prop.
Yeah, like on David Letterman's desk. Like, he's got the old school mic. I'm like, dude, that's the first of all, I know you're wired. So, so it's been, I really, really enjoy it. And I think, and just like anyone else, like, I'm going to be more apt to do something consistently if I really enjoy it. And even if I had like a whole crew of people, all the video editors and stuff like that, I just sitting down and talking in front of a camera is like, I'd rather sit down with 4 people and answer their questions and then make that into a video.
Yeah.
It just, because that's when the real fun, like, you can really let your shit go because you're really engaging with an audience. And that's why I think I love coaching, because it's not just virtually, just like write an article, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like, you can really get to know someone and the kids. Some of the kids are just absolutely hilarious, like, they're good dudes, and just, that's when you start forming relationships, and I think lets the personality out. So, like, last SWIS was awesome. Boy, did I feel like a fish out of water, dude. I'm like, because I was on the end, and like there's the professional coaches, and I was like, these guys are dealing with these high end athletes, and like I'm happy when a kid can do a pull up. I'm like, fuck yeah, dude. And but I was, it's very funny to me because the irony, of course, is their experience and all that stuff. But I'm like, everyone in the audience, none of their athletes are these guys athletes. They're all my athletes.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, wow, there's still a place for this stuff. It is funny because as well as I do, you want all your athletes to be Saquon Barkley, and but it's not.
No,
it's not how it works out.
No, that's why they're the smallest percent.
Yeah, but it's funny because just like everyone who opens up their gym, they're like, I want to train athletes. Like, dude, you're gonna be training the 42-year-old mother.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be the majority of your clientele.
Did you watch the game last night?
Oh yeah. Oh, it's like I tell I'm getting older because I always fall asleep. And then I like get up and I rewind and just fall asleep and then it's rewound. Halfway through the clock. Yeah. And it's a terrific game. And I'm not. I live in Ohio, and you obviously want Ohio State to do well, but Michigan played a hell of a game, and I thought it was going to be Alabama, Texas. But as soon as I watched what Michigan did on that first quarter to Alabama, the way that they hid their blitzes and I was like, man, they got some team speed that they didn't have to really show all year on defense and stuff like that. And it was impressive win. The problem that I had with Washington, I told this to Mason, they've been cutting it too close for too long. You can't get lucky all the time. I don't know if you watch, like they had like at least half their games are won by 7 points or less. Like you can't, it's like playing Russian roulette. Like at some point that chamber's going to turn up and you're going to get shot, man. It's just, so yeah, it was a good game. And I think, this year was the first year that I've kind of gotten on board with the expanded playoffs with all the people opting out. And people got really upset with that. And I get both sides. Like, if I'm going to make a boatload of money, why do I give a shit?
Mm-hmm.
And but at the same time, like with the NIL stuff, it ruined the sport. It's like, well, if you were making 10 million playing wide receiver, would you give it back? So you could make some guy, we talk about the people that don't matter. And the other thing is, how many kids are actually making money?
I don't know that.
Not many.
Yeah.
It's just the way it's always the 10% that make 90%. That's just the way it goes. It's a principle of life. So, I don't know, but they're not taking any money away from anyone else. That's the other thing. It's not like they're taking money away from the tennis team or the volleyball team or whatever. The money's not coming from the university. So,
how do you think it's going to impact the team dynamic?
It's going to be I think that's going to be tough, especially at the quarterback position, because it's very rare that a quarterback's even going to stay 4 years anymore. As it is, even if they didn't have all the transfer rules and NIL stuff. So I think that's going to suffer a little bit. But there's going to be, I thought this was going to happen in basketball with the one and done, but it hasn't really, or maybe it has, and I just haven't noticed because I don't really pay that much attention. But there's going to be some lower level teams that are going to stick together, and they're going to have more seniors and stuff like that. And they might be able to roll over some of the younger teams who don't have that chemistry or whatever you want to say, culture and stuff like that. But at the same time, you got Nick Saban and Kirby Smart, who doesn't matter. They're always going to get recruits, and there's going to be a lot of guys leaving, but somehow, man, they make those guys play. And those kids are Najee Harris, who played at Alabama. He's with the Steelers now. They asked him the difference between college and pros. He's like, dude, pros is way better than playing at Alabama. I got so much more time. He's like, it's tough playing at Alabama. And so to have those coaches are very hard to find, though, that really difference makers, So, listen, like, I think there's always going to be some speed bumps along the way, but I don't think that gives you the right to say you shouldn't make money. Because, I mean, if a kid in the engineering college, if he gets plucked by, a Lockheed Martin or something, he doesn't need a degree. And like, what are you going to say? He can't go work for Lockheed Martin because, it makes you feel bad. So I don't know. I think, the NCAA, I think, is a horrible institution. I think they're run by cowards. And it's nice to see them getting upset because they're not making all the money. And I think it's because what, 80 years or so, probably more than that, they've been making a lot of money. And too bad for them. They're going to get phased out because they don't need them. It's college football has outgrown the NCAA, and they're trying to still be relevant, trying to put their foot down. It's like, who gives a shit? Like, even with the Harbaugh thing, some of the guys were like, dude, just don't do it. Like, what's the NCAA going to do?
Yeah.
They got no power. That was from Ohio State guys. Like, dude, if I was him, I would say no. I just do what I want to do. And let the Big Ten decide or something like that. And who cares what the NCAA wants? But yeah, man, but I think the 12-team playoff is going to help. The only thing that I hope they do, which they probably won't do, is take away some of the games in the regular season, because teams will be playing more games. And they got the way that now you have teams like USC and UCLA are in the Big Ten. That travel is stupid. I wish they would have done that, kept the Pac-12 for the other sports, because now you're asking the swim team and all these other smaller teams having to go, fly to Rutgers, fly to Maryland. That's a long way to go. And that, how it is when we go fly. Like, it screws you up.
Oh, yeah.
And
just a few hours, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, they're students first. Bullshit. You're a moneymaker. And that's the other thing. If they don't take away some of their regular season games and don't tell me that they care about safety, like, stop lying. And because you're a football player first. If you're at Ohio State, make no bones about it. At Alabama, some of these bigger schools, like, just be honest. At least, you can at least internally be honest. Like, sure, it's $1 billion industry, Dave. Like, it's unbelievable to me. But yeah, I always will be a huge college football fan, and it's just like like I said, some of the bowl games being so inconsequential, and it stinks because as someone who went to 2 non-consequential bowl games, it meant a lot to everyone on that team. That's why I always hear that, like, well, these bowls don't matter. That's how I know you're a fucking fraud. Because if you knew, like, dude, it matters to everyone on that team, every single person. It matters to them. And that's why it's like, well, it's like, just like anyone in the strength world knows that this matters, but someone outside, like, well, who cares? Like,
yeah,
who cares? And that's a huge deal. And so it's just a nice litmus test. When you hear someone speak, it's like, as soon as they say that, you're like, no, you're done. Like, you can have an opinion, it's just not right. So but anyway, and with the funny thing too is someone on one of my live streams after Colorado was 2-0 or something. It's like, what do you think about this? I'm like, dude, it's a long season, man. Like, I know, dude, those seasons, you start off hot, it don't mean shit. Like, it's months of gruel. And Mason and I watched together the TCU game. That's the first game of the year that Colorado won. And their star player went both ways and played like 130 plays. I'm like, you can't do that all year. Because they were like, oh my God, look at how great this kid is. I'm like, well, it's great for one game, man. Good luck doing that in game 11. Because your body, I don't care how much GPP you have, Dave.
Yeah.
That's right. Remember Mark McGuire didn't do it?
Yeah, that's guys. What it was. Yep.
Not that the guys were pitching balls to him. And
Nope.
Nope.
It was that.
That was not enough sled dragging, Louis. So one of the greatest fucking things I've ever heard. That and him talking to Ronnie Coleman about tricep work.
Yeah, he needs to do band push downs.
It's like, Lou. Oh, was that funny? I still remember going to the Arnold one year, and I saw Jay Cutler, the bodybuilder, not the football player, in person, and this was kind of at his height. At least I think it was, because that's the only dude I've ever stopped and like followed. And he was so comically large. I don't think people can understand. And I saw Ronnie Coleman that same day, and it wasn't, I don't know, Ronnie was probably on the decline a little bit or whatever, but his shoulders were like bowling balls. Like, you look like a caricature. Like, when you go to the zoo and you're like, you on a skateboard, and if you got big ears, your ears in that picture. Holy shit, was Jay Cutler massive, man. But I remember one time I went out to the Outback, and it must have been near the Arnold time, and sat 3 spots away from Ronnie Coleman eating by himself, or just with, he's got that, and this was after he retired, and his arms were just.
he got to bring his head to the fork because he can't get his arms to his mouth.
Yeah, flick the food up into his mouth. Good Lord. Ronnie Coleman at his peak was just comical. And it's funny because if you see pictures of him before he took anything, holy shit. Oh, my Lord. But genetics don't play a role at all, Dave.
No, it's all drugs. It's all drugs.
That's right. And I think he took some Weeder's principles and applied them, the muscle confusion principle. Yeah, that was one of them. All right, what else we got there, bud?
Let's see.
Anything worth a poop?
I think we covered the other stuff. A lot of the questions kind of revolved around what Juliet's doing to feed the kids into what you have, which was interesting because I've not seen that dynamic before with all the questions. It's usually what are the high school kids doing?
Well, it's with the junior high kids is the whole goal is to get them ready for what we do. So it's not just physically developed. It's, attention to detail and a little more seriousness brought to it. Now, she's like super patient with the kids and stuff like that, but she warns them like, listen, when you get up there, like your hand's not being held, like you're getting individual attention now, but when you get up there, you're not the most important because you're not going to, that doesn't mean you're not going to get coached at all. But as an example, we had some of the 8th graders, so freshmen this year, move up, and one of the kids had 135 on the bar, and his sheet said 130. And boy, did I rip the fuck out of him. And it got quiet in that weight room. And I've never had a problem with him since. And he's been a great kid, but that's the kind of detail you want. And so I think most of it. Now, she also gets a lot of kids that are so not even close to being where they need to be. We had one kid, he did a very basic, like bear crawl, crab walk. I'm trying to think what else, like some forward rolls, like real basic calisthenic style warm up, and like 2 sets of 10 on bodyweight squats, and he was puking his brains out. Just done in the corner. I mean, that's 12 minutes. Like, you got to come in a little bit better than that. But that's some of the athletes that we're dealing with. Now, obviously not all of them are like that, but the main thing is to teach them how to do the lifts. And then you don't get to go up if any set at any point is even remotely bad. And because she always says, I have to be able to turn my back on you. And you do it correctly, it's just doing the lift the correct way. And people always think they're getting away with murder. Like, oh, he's not, like, dude, I might not see all of them, but I'll see some of them. And they, of course, get upset that their weights haven't increased. And she'll just like, listen, this is just how it goes. I can't send you up there with that kind of product because you're not going to be babysat the entire time. So that's the big thing. But I think people probably like when I put up a video of how we train James, people were so confused because it's not that, not that impressive. We do this, like we do a basic calisthenic body weight warm up, and then we just pick 3 things: a lower body movement, an upper body pushing style movement, and there's a million things, and something for pulling. Could be curls, rows, chin ups. And we just do a circuit, and it's like, circuit? What are you, conditioning? No, because after he's done with squats, what am I going to sit around for 10 minutes? Like he's fine. You do a set of squats now. You're like, dude, listen.
Yeah.
We got 20 minutes until my next set. Well, the same principles don't apply. So we just do the circuit thing. It's super easy. It is just like with Juliet, everything is very conservative, just making sure everything is dead on. And the other thing is, and we've said this now for years in our family, it's our consistency is our superpower. That's our superpower. We'll just be more consistent than you. And over time, it just starts killing you. And it's just like studying every day for 10 minutes. All of a sudden, that final, not a big deal, And I think if more people understood that, then they won't freak out about the loading so much. Because that's where I think everything kind of goes to shit, is with the loading. Because now the reps can't be done the way that you want. And, everything seems to come down to that. So magically, though, that all gets worked out, So, and I think, the other thing people need to get over is these kids aren't you. Like, they could do a circuit style training. It's not because they're conditioning. It's not like I time everything. It's just like, while we're waiting for next set of squats, we might as well do some push-ups. Okay. So, the other thing too is, even with everyone says, they got to get good at body weight. Well, a lot of kids can do dumbbell bench, but not a lot of kids can do push-ups, because you can, 10-pound dumbbells is fine. You got a kid who weighs 200 pounds and is massively obese. He ain't going to do a push-up, and it's going to be hard for him to do even an incline push-up. So, and they don't want to do that. It's embarrassing, So I guess the number one thing is we try to train the athlete in a, kind of a complete manner, so to speak. And it's incredibly patient, incredibly conservative, and just very consistent. And once you get to a certain point, then you can start farting around with the loading a little bit. And but we sets are never taken a failure. I'm never going to make. He doesn't want to do it. Like, what are you supposed it's like it's a bodybuilder, like a Weeder muscle shoot. Here we go. Grease me up. It's whatever you tell him to do, he'll do. And then he's like, oh, my legs are tired. And then he runs away. Yeah. Legs aren't that tired, kid. But it's funny because I hear him saying stuff that I say, like, dude, my legs are exhausted today. And it's like, Dad, right here. I'm like, no. Yeah. It's not how it works, kid. That's sore. But it's funny because you hear him saying the exact same language, It's like, oh, my lats, Dad. We didn't do anything for your lats yesterday, right? So I guess, at that age too, like you're not building a ton of strength or muscle. You're building a consistent attitude and learning to do stuff so that when the testosterone does kick in, I always say it's like those are restored reps. Those are going to just, it doesn't work like that. But that's the way I kind of look at it, is like all that's going to really pay off once everything starts hitting. So,
well, you're building the discipline and the consistency.
Yeah. And it's just now when we train, he's like, James will say like, but he just goes into the weight room. It's cold in our weight room right now. And I like that. Like, it's not, easy, So even like when it's cold and we're pushing the prowler, which sucks. That thing is so cold, even with gloves. That's miserable. I dragged the sled today out in the rain. That was a lot of fun. But I could just hear myself telling James, like, come on, dude, it's not that bad. Like, so I guess I'm my own worst coach. So, but yeah, I think Juliet, the other thing that she does, and I think this is super important, this is what I learned with James, is I just had to be more patient. And again, that's something that you have to learn how to do. I mean, some people are more patient than others, but man, that was one of the hardest things I had to do, was just relax. It's not the world to him like it might be for me. So she does a good job at that. So, but there's more consequences, so to speak. We're trying to win football games and stuff like that, and she's just getting those kids ready to play football. And so even though, yes, their seasons are important, there's not the same kind of immediacy. So she can be a little nicer and stuff. Mm-hmm. And she is much nicer than I am. She doesn't think so. But with James, I'm like, I'll be like, listen, dude, you want to get out of here? All right, you got to do 10 reps on the pull-ups. We'll just get it done. Mm-hmm. He's like, okay. All right, good job, kid. Let's get it. You want to go get a milkshake? So, but yeah, I think that's super important for that age level too. You have to have a coach that's willing to work with those kids and work. How do I put this? Understand they're not going to be 18-year-old studs or something. That your coaching has to change based on the kids that you have. Does that make
well, you don't know if they're going to be that anyhow.
Yeah, I know. So you just you have to understand what you're getting to, and I maybe not this last SWIS, but the one prior. I always, before Juliet started training, I would, some of the junior high kids wanted to come up because of our success. And then that got to be 2 or 3 kids, and it became 10. And now I couldn't even coach the other kids because I have to watch these knuckleheads all the time. And as soon as you turn your back on those kids, oh my God. And I always, so on this second to last SWIS, I said, we should have just sent in a bunch of junior high kids to Afghanistan. That country would have been fucking done in 2 weeks. Well, I didn't know there was a tier 1 special operator there. And I saw him laughing, and then he came up and introduced me. I'm like, dude, I'm sorry if I offend. He's like, no, dude, that's awesome. Like, just so everyone knows, a tier 1 operator is a special forces guy that's special forces of the special forces guys, like the NFL of the NFL, so to speak. So, but anyway, yeah. So I think just be ready if you're coaching that age level to have good standards, but understand they got to be a little different than, what you would have, so to speak. Doesn't mean you can't have high standards, but, but we always get like DMs from parents and stuff. Can my son's my son doesn't play football. And it's like, no, I can't just take every kid. Mm-hmm. It's not fair to everyone else that plays football and stuff like that. So, and, we've had other sports ask us. I'm like, nah, because they're not dedicated. They'll say they are. This. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm 100% in. It's like, and then they the kids look a little tired today. We're not going to train. Like, no bullshit, dude. Like, that's just not how it works. That's the good thing about football. Football culture is training. At least most of it is. So, even during our 2-a-days and stuff, we train right through. And I mean, obviously things change a little bit, but that's always, everything revolves around when we train, not the other way around. So that's the kind of priority that it's given. And it seems to have paid off fairly well for us, is it funny to watch though? Because just steamrolling dudes, it gives me so much joy. Oh, it's fun. Running the quarterback sneak over and over again. My dad's like, dude, I think your quarterback was the leading rusher in the sneak. Like 180 yards of sneak yards.
Oh, God. Any topics you want to talk about that I didn't bring up?
Not really. No, here's something. Like, what's the current definition of conjugate training? Do you even know? Because I think it's changed.
It depends who you're speaking to at this point. So it's when I'll have people on the podcast and they're talking about that, I have to ask them to define what that means to them.
I thought about this because someone asked me about conjugate training. I'm like, well, we train concurrently because that's what we got it to mean. I'm like, I hope to God everyone does. That's raising of several values at once. Yeah. But apparently it doesn't mean that. Or does it?
Well, again, it's going to depend upon who you speak to. Like some people will define it as just the rotation of the movements, the changing
Okay.
of the movements.
Okay.
Where if you were to go back to all the Russian texts that we tried to manage our way through, that would be kind of how it was defined, where concurrent training would be what conjugate was. You remember all those conversations that I've had to have with people
Yes.
that would go back through all those old texts
Yep.
and then come back and say, this is concurrent, right?
Yes.
Or is it conjugate?
I remember where I was in a, I was meeting you in the airport. You flew in from Ohio. I flew in Kentucky. We were flying to, I don't know, Boston or something. And we met in, I don't know, wherever, Detroit. And I remember like, Dave, I got to ask you a question, buddy. It's like, what's up? Like, I don't know how to really phrase this, but it's not conjugate training, it's concurrent. Because I was reading this and he's like, yeah, okay, you're right. Like, we found that out too, buddy.
Yeah. Well, I think that's more well known now
Okay.
than in the past. But when something has been used for decades,
Yeah.
sort of improperly, right? Because you could still say that all of it, because things are changing, is conjugate. So you can still kind of say that, but it has become this talking point to where if I'm speaking with somebody about programming, I have to ask how they define that. Just how you would volume, right?
Yeah. Is it? Yeah.
Yeah. Or even intensity, like
Yes.
a strength coach is going to define that different than a bodybuilder, where the terminology that gets thrown around needs to be defined.
Yes.
At least if I'm speaking with them. And I don't care if it's wrong or if I think it's wrong, or I don't really care, because there's so many sources that bounce it back and forth.
Yeah.
But it would be nice if people knew the context to which somebody was defining it.
Yes.
Because it changes a lot.
Yes.
Especially intensity. that can change a lot.
Yes.
And
I just I don't know. I feel like I've just become like out of date because I see conjugate stuff and then people throwing it around. I'm like, that's not what that. I don't know. Maybe it is. And I just gave up. And I don't know. Maybe we're a dying breed, Dave. I feel so sad because I feel like I got so much to offer.
Yeah. I think on the coaching side, with those that are serious, the education's higher, right? So the conversations can actually be better because you can work through these type of things and then get into what actual real phasic training is, or how they're going to define that, or how all these different variables play in and what matters and what doesn't, and for what population.
It's weird too, because with a lot of that stuff, like what you would call regular periodization and stuff, Louis in that article on T-Nation, the mad monk of powerlifting, he said periodization's traditional. And then, which I totally get. And now I look at, how I want to structure the training, and I'm like, I throw 35% of that away based on what they're prepared to do on a daily basis. So I'm like, how can you prepare for any of this shit? Like, I mean, how can you periodize any? Because you don't know. You have no idea. So what are you supposed to do if they can't do what's on the paper that you had planned? Now, how is this going to affect your outcome? I don't know. So I gotta, that's when I realized, like, listen, this is the base kind of thing we're going after. This is the end result. However we get there, we'll figure it out on the way, and just have a lot of ways in and out of things, because it's never going to be what it's on the paper ever. And that's like, I remember one of the things that I've noticed, and I am massively to blame for this, is I've just amazed at how few people know how to train assistance work. Just like it says tricep push downs. Like, well, what do I do? Do tricep push downs? Well, a lot of reps, sometimes. See, instead of like, I remember thinking, what I'm gonna try today? I'm gonna try band and the barbell or something. Whatever. And it's like, really? Like, why? It's like, I don't know. How many reps? I don't know. I'm just gonna put the pin in around 80 because I don't know what this band's tension gonna be like. And then I'll do 10 and be like, all right, I think, but it, because everything been force fed, do set this, do this weight, this, whatever. Just like, I did, just gave people no option, which sometimes a good option, but people need to learn how to train just kind of off the cuff, because how do you know you're going to be ready for dips that day or dumbbell bench? Maybe your shoulders are going to be all fucked up. And so that's been like one of the things I've been trying to get across to the guys on the forum. Like, listen, have a plan. That's great, man. But you got to be okay to change. You got to be okay to be like, listen, dude, all I got in me is like 3 sets of tricep push downs and some, lat pulls. I'm tired. I didn't know.
It's the only way you're going to be able to progress after a certain point in time.
Yeah. But I see younger kids, like during the season, like I had this plan. It's like they walk in, you're like, dude, no, we're just doing some. When I trained Elijah, I had this whole plan worked out doing the metabolic. I see him walking up to the house because he lived just a couple blocks down. And I'm watching him walk. I'm like, ain't no way we're training today. So we just did sled pulls with a rope. Next training session, a day and a half or 2 days later, one of the best ones we've ever had.
Well, some would say that's the difference between coaching and programming.
Yes.
They're entirely two different things.
And it's like, I just don't, even when, like, I was thinking about, like, it'd be great to do some online stuff, but I'm like, but I'm going to have to watch you train every day. I can't just give you a program. Like, how I know? And you have to be like, that's one of the good things about training people in person. Like, you watch their bar speed, you're like, we're good. We're solid. Or not. It's like, listen, I know there's no way you're going to hit what we need to hit today. Let's just back down, just get a win for the day.
As you said, you can see as they walk in.
Yes. I don't know how people don't know that.
Well, they've not been around it. If you've been around it your whole life, you can see immediately, right?
But then you shouldn't be training people.
Or actually, I'll back that up. I'll back that up. Even if you train somebody for 6 months, and if you're paying attention, then there's the problem. Right. The coaches don't pay attention, and they don't listen, and they don't watch.
Yeah. But it's always the, I don't know. That's one of the things, like I said earlier, like I got good with being like, well, that's like, I had no control. So let's just focus on this. And, all right. So we know what concurrent or conjugate training may or may not be. What a fucked up thing.
Yeah. Yep.
I see a lot of, social media stuff about conjugate, and I'm always like, I will not watch this video because I don't know what the hell's going on anymore. It just and I don't know.
What's been interesting is to speak to some of the top powerlifters that really don't know programming that well, but they just kind of figured the shit out for themselves, and then walk them through what they actually do. And then kind of put the pieces together. And then you see, the one thing that's with all of them is they learn how to auto-regulate their training, which is basically what you're saying.
The last, when I squatted 1,000, I remember Chuck, I learned just whatever Chuck wanted to do that day. I would just, it might be greens and chains. It might be blues. Like, I never could figure out his rhyme or reason, and I wasn't going to fight it. I wasn't going to sit around and wait for all that shit to be done. So I remember I was just like, whatever Chuck had on the bar, I would just load up until I felt the bar weight that I needed. You get experienced enough where you can figure out where you are. And I remember I went back and went through all the training for like 16 weeks prior to squatting 1,000, and I figured out the average weight on the box. So you figure, whatever. It took forever to do this. And the average weight on the box was 78%. It's about where you want to be for, 85 would be probably too heavy for the amount of, at that time, but it was about 77 to 78%. I'm like, so, it was just random shit Chuck would put on the bar. And I'm like, well, I'll figure this out. And I'm like, wow, isn't that, it never really went over 80. And that's just where you want to be. And I was like, man, I was tuned in. It's awesome when you figure that shit out.
Yeah.
Dude. I mean, just like, we're doing this. Like, it's fine. I don't care what, because it used to be, listen, I got to have a blue and a green today because that's what this says here. 365 and a blue. And it's like, now it's,
Yeah. Well, you end up running your dick in the dirt.
Yeah.
You can't recover.
Yeah. Or you get so OCD about that shit. And, it was like freeing. I'm like, whatever Chuck wants to do, I'm okay with it. I'll just figure out my weights as I work up. Anyways, you did a thing with Chuck, right? Yeah, and a couple guys like Kenny and who's the other guy?
Joe McCoy.
Joe
Todd.
McCoy. Yeah. Is Chuck doing okay? He still
Mhm.
looks like Chuck. He looks good.
He's doing all right. Yeah.
He still combs his hair.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying. I had to think back. Does he still have hair? But yeah.
No.
Oh yeah. And he stays lean. And he come out a couple times. And I mean, he's beat up obviously,
Yep.
but will still have 5 plates on with basically no briefs and squat it like it's an empty bar.
He's the anomaly.
You know, I mean, it's impressive to watch, knowing just how fucked up he is and just how that his bar speed is still there.
Yeah.
Now he's not going to force, he's not going to put 8 plates on or any shit like that. But
watching him squat 500 pounds.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, he can basically limp to it, get under it. And then once he's doing it, he's fine. And then limp away and all the other stuff. So,
that was my, the first meet I ever did was, when Chuck squatted 1,000 for the first time at 220. And I remember you probably do too. His best squat up until then at 220 was 900 and he opened with 905.
Mm-hmm.
Like I couldn't think of a dumber thing to do right now.
No,
he missed it, fell on his head.
Mm-hmm.
And then he went 965.
Missed that.
He got that.
Oh, he got that.
He got that because that beat the all-time record. And then he squatted 1,000 the next attempt. But I remember thinking, like, if you would never advise a high-end lifter to take 5 pounds more PR.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then miss it. You'd be like, dude, you're going to have to get in the meet. I'll be fine. God. Don't do what he did, kids.
Nah. It's when I was the head judge on that. And after he missed the first one, I called Louis over. I'm like, dude, like, what the fuck? Like, first off, like, what the fuck's he doing? Because, I'm not in the warm-up room, so I'm just looking at the screen.
Yeah.
And I see the number. I'm like, the fuck?
I already know what Louis said. What do you want me to say?
Yeah. He's like, you fucking tell him. I can't fucking tell him.
Louis cornered me in a parking lot one time after training. He's like, hey, you think you can talk to Chuck? I'm like, what the fuck am I going to say to him?
Yeah.
He's like, I don't know. Maybe he'll listen to you. I'm like, he's not going to listen to me, man. You know that. He's like, I know, but what are you going to do? And I'm like, I'll say something to him. But, but then you realize like he wouldn't have been that successful.
No.
Even if he did it. And then the next meet was in West Virginia and he was waiting for the squat command. He did his opener was 1025. Something like that. It might have been 1,005, then 1025, but whatever his opener was, he was waiting because the APF.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, dude, it's not the. And Louis losing his mind. Not the fucking APF. No, you're lifting. Fuck.
Yeah.
I still remember because Louis squatted in that meet and then he tore his pec.
Mm-hmm.
And then after the meet, he was taking down some of the monoliths and he had his shirt off and his pec was just completely black. And he's just holding up, wrenching. And I was like, oh my God. When I say black, I mean, this whole thing was just torn to shit. He's like, I'm fine. I don't know, bud.
And then Jim the next day doing speed bench.
Yeah. Oh.
Any final thoughts you got?
Final thoughts, just be consistent, people. That's it. Have a good life. Have a good time. And seek purpose, not happiness. That's it. And then we'll talk after this.
Yeah, check out his YouTube.
Yes, YouTube.
Yeah, we put the link there.
10 a.m. Eastern time, usually on Fridays, unless it changes, and it'll be put up on social media and all.
Well, I already know it's going to be on the Friday after this post.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
I confirmed that.
Okay. Yeah.
So check that out. Thanks for coming out. And guys, we're done.
All right. Bye-bye.
You guys are selecting Merrick for your telehealth platform needs. They have a couple different ways that they go about doing this. The first is through a self-selected experience. There's a table talk panel, which is the full panel. That would be the panel that I personally get twice a year. That's checking everything. You name it, it's all there. The other panel is a checkup panel with a guided optimization. You're connected with a patient care coordinator, and the patient care coordinator will meet with you to determine what your needs are. Thing to be able to help optimize your health or mitigate without judgment. So the discount code again is Table Talk Merrick Health for all your hormone optimization and performance needs. All right, guys, we've got a new limited edition drop, the original Mountain Dog tee that John Meadows had us design from the very beginning. So it's the first tee that he had made. Once again, this is a limited edition item. So when they're gone, they're gone. While I have your attention, you've seen me wear this one in a few podcasts to date. We've been holding back on it. This here, the 4-star tee, I think that's what we call it. It's on the website. New items, also under limited edition. Check out our shoulder saver pads. It's an easy way to do limited restricted range of motion exercises like board press that basically you just pop the pad on the bar, reduces the range of motion, pop it back off when you're done. Thank you guys for the support. Head over to elitefts.com. All right, guys, if you like the Table Talk podcast, then you're going to love the crew. If you're struggling with trying to get through a sticking point, you're trying to figure some specific aspect of your training out that you just can't dial in, you're dealing with injuries, you're trying to figure out how to better optimize your training, all the stuff you're seeing on social media is confusing, and all you need is a little guidance and support, or just somebody to look at your lifts to make sure that they're either heading in the right direction, or if there's a weak point in the lift, they can point out what that weak point is. Well, that's what we have the crew for. So when you join the crew, you get an extra Table Talk podcast each month called the Crewcast. You also get access to our Discord community, which has a training Q&A, form checks with top coaches, mindset section, nutrition, training logs, programs, over 30 ebooks, plus exclusive ebooks just for the crew, webinars, lectures, seminars, giveaways ranging from full strength equipment. We've given away many yoke bars this year. We've given away actually pieces of strength equipment as well as accessory items, and you get exclusive crew discounts. So go to the link in the description that says join the crew, click it, join now, and start getting stronger today. Elite FTS was founded in 1998 with the aim to live, learn, and pass on. We've done this through training-related content that allows you to become the strongest athlete and coach that you can. Over the past 2 decades, actually 2.5 decades, we've published more complementary training media than anybody else in the industry. When you look at the number of articles, the Q&As, the blogs, the videos, the podcasts, there's over 1 million pages of content that we've put out there. We've been able to do this through your support of Elite FTS. So when you purchase Elite FTS strength equipment, bands, accessories, gear, apparel, or anything through the site, you directly help support the content that we put out, which in turn helps support other people on their journey of becoming stronger and better coaches. So stronger athletes and better coaches, which encompasses the aim and the vision to live, learn, and pass on. So I thank you for the support that you've been giving for the past 25 years and encourage you to keep supporting Elite FTS into the future so we can all help more people become better and stronger. Discount code Table Talk for 10% off your first order. Today's episode is brought to you by Element, a tasty electrolyte drink mix with everything that you need and nothing that you don't. In other words, no sugar, no artificial coloring, no artificial ingredients, no gluten, no fillers, and no BS. With Element, I love the watermelon. The watermelon tastes freaking awesome. I drank 1 pack every day, no matter what. People that train out here, it's sitting out here for them all the time. The boxes don't last very long. Right now, Element is offering Table Talk listeners a free sample pack with any purchase. That's 8 single serving packages free with any Element order. Get yours at drinkelement.com/Table Talk. The deal is only available through the link in the description. The other thing is if you don't like it, you can just give it away to a salty friend and Element will give you a 100% refund. No risk, money back guarantee. Head over to drinkelement.com/Table Talk.